Council meeting for Monday, December 1st. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have all members of council in attendance this evening. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi people, and of the Huron-Wendat people. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Mr. Malandrucolo for 2 closed meeting reports.
Andy, through you. On December 1st, 2025 at 4 p.m., council met in closed session pursuant to Section 239 to F, J, and K of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss agreement and negotiations related to infrastructure projects. Council also met and closed at 5:30 p.m. on December 1, 2025, pursuant to Section 239 to B, D, J, and K of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss personnel matters. And that is the extent of my report.
Drucolo, any conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder of the adoption of the published agenda, and it's going to be as amended. We're going to move up Councillor Mady's motion. So we're moving up 17.1.1 to item 8.2. So it coincides with our delegates this evening. Needing a mover and a seconder, Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Mady, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Looking for a mover and a seconder of the regular council meeting minutes for November 17th. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 8.1, public presentations. Our first public presentation this evening is our brand new Integrity Commissioner, Susan Craig. Welcome, Ms. Craig.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Shepley, members of council. It's a pleasure to be here with you virtually this evening. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it this evening. I will endeavor at a future meeting to come and meet everyone in person. I'd like to thank the members of council for giving me the opportunity to serve council in the capacity of Integrity Commissioner. I'm here simply to introduce myself this evening with a few short slides to speak a bit about, very high level, why we have codes of conduct, my duties as I see myself, a little bit of background, and my approach to my role. So I'll go on to the next slide, and thank you for your attention. Slide 2, please. As a result of 3 specific inquiries, and I'm sure that you have heard this, but this is for me to introduce myself and also for the public, there have been three inquiries that have sort of brought to the fore why we have codes of conduct. These inquiries brought forward the need for standards of conduct expected by members of council to enhance public trust. I'm sure that we've all heard of the Bellamy inquiry, which took place in 2005, for which Justice Bellamy made recommendations for the good governance for the City of Toronto in the wake of the computer leasing scandal. Justice Bellamy's recommendations were aimed at improving practices in governance, ethics, lobbying, and procurement. Justice Bellamy noted that the behavior of members towards one another was the most obvious integrity issue facing the city at the moment. And that message, I believe, holds true today. Members are scrutinized, and what you say at committee and council meetings, online and in person, will promote trust in the work that you do or erode that trust with the public. The second inquiry was in 2011. Justice Cunningham conducted the Mississauga inquiry, which looked into the allegations that former Mayor Hazel McCallion voted in 2007 at Peel Regional Council on decisions about development charges that could have saved her son's company $11 million. This, found Justice Cunningham, was an issue of conflict of interest, but more importantly, set the stage for the call once again for independent ethics officers for all municipalities. And finally, in the trilogy of why do we have codes of conduct that I often share when I give presentations, was the Collingwood inquiry, which was presided over by Justice Morocco. The inquiry looked into the Council of the Town of Collingwood that had passed a resolution to request a judicial inquiry into the process undertaken, which resulted in the sale of 50% of the town's electrical utility. In 2020, Justice Morocco's report was tabled, and he said, Collingwood's stake in a utility and the construction of 2 recreation facilities have been stained, he said, by the undisclosed conflicts and unfair procurements. Next slide, please. So the duties of the Integrity Commissioner. I think it's important for me to state that I believe the Code of Conduct belongs to Council. It's a living document. It doesn't rest forever. And it changes over time based on legislative changes. We know that Bill 9 is likely to come forward in 2026. Sometimes codes of conduct change because there's been a significant code complaint and council believes there's a need to change the code, or simply to address best practices that come out of court decisions of judicial reviews. I am an ethics resource, and so one of my duties is set out by the Bellamy report is to be an independent resource to council. Of note, Justice Bellamy has said, these are why we need integrity commissioners. She said, busy councillors and staff cannot be expected to track with precision the development of ethical norms. So an integrity commissioner can therefore be an important resource of ethical expertise, looking at some of the judicial reviews and from time to time advising you on some of the best practices that have come forward. An integrity commissioner provides significant profile to ethical issues inside government and sends an important message to your constituents about your commitment to ethical governance. And that's why from time to time, I will be developing information bulletins, not only to guide you, but to assist your residents in understanding the roles and responsibilities of members of council. And Justice Bellamy concludes by saying, without enforcement, the rules are only guidelines. And so, of course, part of my duty is to conduct investigations. But I see that as one of the less important roles and duties that I have, because in my role as Integrity Commissioner, education and outreach is the most important. Through my education mandate, I seek to clarify to you, Council, the rules of the Code of Conduct, and they're not in place, as you know, to prevent you from carrying out your objectives for which you ran for office and were elected. However, as you all know, when a member of council is elected, they cease to represent a particular group or a particular issue. You can still have your perspectives on these issues, but you become one part of the governing body. To ensure transparency in the work that I do for municipal council, I publish an annual or periodic report that sets out what I've done. So the number of code complaints I've received, formal, informal, the disposition, have they been settled, dismissed, have they been brought to council? I talk about in the annual report any issues of note that I believe are important for council to recognize from the matters that came to my office. And of course, in the annual report, I also publish the expenses of my office because you are public and I represent a statutory officer, and my expenses of my office are, of course, taxpayer dollars. And so it's important to know what the cost of integrity is at a municipality. I also received Conflict of Interest Act requests for investigation. In 2019, the Integrity Commissioner was given the authority to review MCIA complaints. Prior to that, an individual member of the public would have to bring forward an application to court, which was a very long and expensive process. As of 2019, the Integrity Commissioner may receive an application to review whether or not a member has breached the MCIA. And in the case that the Integrity Commissioner believes that a member has, the enforcement goes through the courts. So members of the public may either go directly through the courts or through the Integrity Commissioner, but at the end of the day, it is a court that decides whether or not a member of council has breached the code. Your CAO, your clerk, and your legal advisors have vast experience, but it's not their role to provide individual members with advice on whether or not you have a pecuniary interest. Your own legal advisor or the Integrity Commissioner is a resource that you can access to assist you in determining whether or not you may have a disqualifying pecuniary interest for which you have to declare a conflict and not participate and not vote. Next slide, please. So I don't really like talking about myself, but if I was there in person, I would probably take an opportunity to shake everyone's hand and let you know a little bit about me. I am a people person. I like to meet people in person, but I'm also in Toronto, so I'm not going to be able to come too often to your jurisdiction. I've acted as appointed Integrity Commissioner for over 30 municipalities since 2008. There are excellent individuals out there who carry out this function as I do, but some have different perspectives than I do. Quite simply, I believe that an Integrity Commissioner is an independent officer who operates at arm's length of council, but must keep present that she reports to council. I report to you and I work for you on behalf of the public interest. I believe that the notion of serving council while being independent is an important piece of my approach of being an Integrity Commissioner in the spirit of the Municipal Act, Accountability and Transparency, Part 5.1. I've acted as the Lobbyist Registrar, closed meeting investigator for municipal organizations. I've been a mediator and adjudicator in the areas of human rights, workplace harassment, employment legislation, and access and privacy. I worked with Professor David Mullen at the City of Toronto in his role as the first Integrity Commissioner at the municipal level in Ontario. I've been involved in putting together draft pieces of updates to the Municipal Act with respect to codes of conduct. I've been an expert witness at the Collingwood inquiry with respect to lobbying rules, and I am the co-chair of the Federal Task Force to review the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Act, or the Whistleblower Act. I'm a lawyer by training, a public servant by vocation, and I collaborate with a group of professionals who work with me to provide legal advice and research to my consultancy in the work that I do. Last slide, please. My role as Integrity Commissioner is to clarify, if needed, the rules of the code to ensure that the rules are clear to you, to your staff, and to the public. I give education sessions, one-on-one discussions with members of council. I develop information bulletins, all to help facilitate your growth and understanding so that as new situations arise, and they will, especially as we go into an election year, there's an opportunity for open and frank discussions on the rules of the code and the MCIA in action, how they relate to you in your day-to-day conducting the work that you do as elected leaders. My approach to the role of Integrity Commissioner is to be a resource. To summarize, while I know that many see the role of an Integrity Commissioner as punitive and only about investigating code complaints and handing out recommendations on penalties, I view my role as facilitating a clear understanding of what the code is, but also what the code is not, so that you and your staff and the public see the code, and my role as a facilitator to help you understand your roles and responsibilities and not an enabler of weaponizing the code. I look forward to serving council and the municipality in the role of Integrity Commissioner to advise and guide you in your ethical obligations going forward. Thank you.
Questions, comments from members of council this evening? Councillor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and welcome. And I hope other than your updates, we don't have to speak much. My question I could not find answered in the report was, so if there are there outstanding inquiries, complaints ongoing with our outgoing integrity commissioner, are they passed on to you?
Through the mayor to you, Councillor, through working with your staff, Mr. Mandruklo, and others, if there is an outstanding matter, I will work with your outgoing integrity commissioner. To date, I do not have an understanding that there is. I don't believe that there are, but there will be a seamless transition so that we will not have you left with the outgoing integrity commissioner having carriage of a matter that's going forward. I'll work with him if there is a transition, but otherwise I'll work with your staff to ensure that I'm aware of what's ongoing and what's coming up.
Director Malandroukolo would like to add.
I agree with you, but also through the chair, Mr. Elman's contract requires that he transfer anything to the next integrity commissioner that might be outstanding. So I will make contact with him this week and ask him if there is anything that needs to be transferred, and I'll make sure that that's coordinated.
So any other questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none at this time, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the presentation in the delegation by Susan Craig, the Integrity Commissioner, be received. And welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Good night.
Good night. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to Mr. Tim Burney, CEO, Secretary, Treasurer, and James Brandt, Director of Watershed Management for the Essex Region Conservation Authority. And together you have 10 minutes back there, Tim.
Thank you, Your Worship. I stand advised. Your Worship, council, staff, and acknowledgement to our board members, Katie McGuire-Blaze and Jason Mady. Thank you for having us here tonight. Typically, we show up this time of year to advise on where we're at for budget, advise where we're at for the ongoings and the accomplishments of the Conservation Authority throughout the year and what we're looking at doing next year. We've been faced with, as a result of 3 weeks ago, an announcement, 8 o'clock Friday morning, of rather sweeping changes being pushed forward by the province. The CAOs learned of that 8 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, without any pre-consultation, without any consultation. Caught us somewhat by surprise, but we weren't shocked. We've advised the province that if there is a need for change, we need to understand why there is a need to change. We need to understand what the problem actually is that we're trying to solve. And destruction does not actually push forward to success. You have a enterprise in place right now that municipalities are adjoined to, that municipalities participate directly in. And if there's some challenges that we're not aware of, we should jointly be informed of those challenges and move forward with it. We have a very brief presentation for you, and James will be up in a moment with that PowerPoint. And happy to answer any questions that you wish to ask of us. I do also have some very basic information on the budget and where we're looking at for budget, and we can possibly deal with that in a question and answer period after our very brief presentation. Thank you, Worship. Without further ado, Mr. James Bryant.
I mean, we are experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties getting the present. Oh, there we go. No, maybe not. Okay. We're going to have it circulated to council, and then just if you could go through it, and we'll do the best we can.
Not a problem. Thank you. And through your worship, yeah, we'll certainly circulate that again, and you'll be able to have a copy of this. I'll be quick, and I guess you guys can visualize along with me. So obviously, Mr. Burney's mentioned why we're here, to give you a little bit more information on Bill 68 and the ERO posting related to the proposed amalgamation for the conservation authorities. Right now, the current landscape for CAs is that there's 36 conservation authorities across the province of Ontario, largely concentrated in the southwestern of Ontario. And that's the broader term, not local southwestern, but the broader provincial southwestern. There's one way up, kind of standalone, Lakehead, which is up on Lake Superior, but there's 36 CAs, 31 generally in southwestern Ontario. Those were created way back in response to deforestation, which Mr. Burney has talked about in the past with this council. We do operate on the principle of integrated watershed management, and we do that really through you guys. So the current framework right now is the Conservation Authorities Act. Below that, in terms of a hierarchy, we have through that piece of legislation, you as municipalities have the ability to create a conservation authority through that piece of legislation. From there, there's a board of directors that it becomes established, and that would be our appointed council. So the board members are appointed councillors from the municipalities, and we have Councillor Maddie and Councillor McGuire Blaze here on our board. From there, we have our administration, and we basically enact the vision of our board, of our municipalities. We enact that vision in compliance with the legislation. What we have in front of us now, and I'll say with that, is we do have control over, there's control over budgets and programs and services through that, right? So if you guys are part of our local board, you guys have control over the programs and services that we deliver and how those are funded to distinguish which are our priorities. From there, what we have is the proposal for Bill 68. And Bill 68 is different from the proposed amalgamation. There's two streams going on. And what you hear a lot about in the media is the proposed amalgamation of the CAs. That is one stream or one silo of what's happening. Bill 68 is a budget measures bill. And through Bill 68, which was given royal assent on November 27th, that is an enabling piece of legislation that establishes a provincial agency, oversight agency, the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. With the establishment of that agency, that will come through the Conservation Authorities Act. That agency will get established, and they will oversee the proposed amalgamation. They will oversee the transition of what that looks like. They will decide on the boundaries. They will decide on how that financials, how that will look, and how it will be integrated, et cetera. So they have a whole series of objects and duties and powers that are established through the Conservation Authorities Act that's being amended. So that will be included in the amended CEA Act through that budget measure bill. That provincial oversight agency will have 5 to 12 appointed board members. They are appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and Council. From there will be an appointed CEO of that agency, and then provincial agency staff. They will again determine the boundaries of the amalgamation. They will oversee that structure. They will oversee the governances, the finances. They will look at performance, the strategic vision of the respective CAs once they're amalgamated. That is kind of the provincial, I'll say, oversight watchdog or agency, which doesn't exist today. So below that would be the seven proposed CAs, and that's what you're seeing through the ERO posting. So that's a separate leg. Again, Bill 68 was given royal assent. The ERO posting is up until December, the end of December 22nd, and that is where they give some ideas about what that amalgamation might look like. So right now there's a proposal for 7. Our municipalities down here, including the town of Essex, would be part of what's been called the Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority. So that would leave the town of Essex from being currently one of 9 members of our organization. They would become one of 81 municipalities. So be that as it may, in terms of what your voices are, where your dollars are going, it's a little bit unclear at this stage what that looks like. Oh, there we go. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is what I was just mentioning. That is the proposed boundary of the proposed Lake Erie Regional CA. As you can see, you would have the OPCA, the agency, the oversight agency. You would have below that the Lake Erie Regional CA, and then again, the town of Essex being one of 81 municipalities within there. We know that there's supposed to be somewhere between 5 to 12 appointed board members for the provincial agency. We do not know what the board governance will look like for the regional CA. We don't know, and that's one of the questions that's being posed through the ERO posting. They're looking for suggestions, feedback on that matter. Next slide, please. So this, just to help you what it looks like, we go from the Essex Region CA to there's 8 conservation authorities. That geography spans up past Guelph. And those are the 81 municipalities that I'll say that we are going to be competing with in terms of prioritization, local projects. Highlighted there is the first 11 or 12. I have the County of Brant. That's a mistake, but they are in there. But the other ones that are highlighted are large, major population centers. Again, currently the board structures are based off of population. It may not be that in the future. We don't know. But if it is, those are your major population centers. 1 out of those 11 is the city of Windsor. In terms of geography, we're looking at a change in geography over our governance. From those numbers that you see there, we're looking at an increase in percent land area nearing 1,300%. You know, we're getting up to 23,000 square kilometers in terms of geography. Next slide, please. So what's next? Well, Bill 68 was given royal assent. So from there, the expectation is that there will be a CEO appointed to the provincial agency. There will also be the board members appointed by the Lieutenant Governor Council. Again, 5 to 12, minimum 5, max 12. The CEO will appoint staff or hire staff within that agency. And then that agency will do their work in terms of the CA amalgamation, finalizing those future boundaries. They will establish what that governance looks like, and they will oversee that transition from the 36 to whatever they decide. Right now, it's proposed to be 7. The timeline for that transition is shown there, and this is as much as we know right now. That same information is out there available to this group, but we're looking at the closing of the current ERO posting is December 22nd. As we're told right now, potentially finalizing CA boundary structures in the spring of 2026, transitioning through 2026 into 2027 with implementation of regional CAs, which is an aggressive timeline. That's currently what's been proposed and on the table at this stage. Next slide is just placeholder where myself and Mr. Bernie are available to answer any questions. Council Mike. Thank you.
Much. I will go to council. We have questions, comments. Well, we have both of them here. If there's any members of council that have questions or comments. Councillor Mady.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. First, thank you for coming and explaining that very clearly, which was my hope. I wanted the rest of council here to get a real understanding of what's the plan is and some of the reasons why I think that we should be not supporting this plan. Every time I try to look at this through a different lens, I can't find a good reason to amalgamate all these conservation authorities. And it doesn't matter, even if I try to take any type of business, or it puts us in line behind 81 other municipalities. You saw the top 12, there were large cities. Having Essex's voice ring out through that, I think is going to get a lot cluttered. It removes us, your local councillors, from being on that board, maybe. You won't be able to just talk to us and have that brought to a board. All of a sudden, you're going to have a whole nother path that you might have to go through in competition with people all the way up to north of Guelph. So these are points I'm glad that you were able to make and really for my council. So I just wanted to thank you for coming here and giving us that presentation.
That's Councillor McGuire, please.
Thanks through the chair. You may not know the answer to this, but from a development standpoint, if somebody's looking to develop within a watershed, let's say in Colchester, we usually have to go through IRCA, get special permits and things. Will that then be put to the next tier? So that permit will now be competing for approval for 81 municipalities or 81 different towns. Is that how it will work? Or will Essex still maintain an office to keep development moving, or will we now be put into a big cluster?
Thank you, Counselor and Board member. Excellent question. We don't have a clue. The one thing we do know is the jurisdiction extends from the Detroit River 300 kilometers to the northeast. Watershed principle be damned. That goes out the door. Local accountability, that goes out the door. We are asking for, okay, what is it that we are looking at? What is it that we can plan for? And we don't have any answers to that at all. The ERO posting and the allowances for yourself to attempt to have those questions answered or whatever else, the ERO posting is very, very scripted in your responses. The questions are very limited that you can answer. Your opportunities exist to you, to your colleagues on this council, and to general ratepayers. Write letters to your constituency offices, Mr. Dowie, Mr. Liardi, Mr. Jones, and to Premier Ford's office. And hopefully they can answer some of those excellent questions you posed to me tonight that I simply can't answer. But I can tell you one thing, a board that spans 300 kilometers, they're not going to know who Katie McGuire Blaze is.
The chair, I appreciate that answer. I knew you wouldn't have it, but I wanted council to hear that we don't know what that looks like. We have a flooding issue in Essex County, not just in Essex, but in Essex County. And so to potentially say, you know, we won't have a board or we won't have an authority in our own backyard who's going to protect our watershed and protect us from flooding is really scary to think about. If we have a developer who wants to develop and they start removing the restrictions, or, you know, they just start building because they're not getting an answer. And so they just do what they want. That who knows what that's going to look like. I'm going to support the motion coming forward from Councillor Mady, and I appreciate you guys coming. I do encourage everybody, all municipalities to write your MPs, write Ford's office, and let them know that we're not happy with this. I would also encourage all developers to do the same. So if anybody's looking to develop, you might have to wait a really long time to get those permits done or break the law. I don't encourage breaking the law, but we could see that happening. So thank you very much for coming.
Councilor Verbeek.
Through you, Mayor, and to the delegates, of the 7 newly amalgamated territories or whatever, isn't it safe to say that Essex County does have the most amount of shoreline than any of the other 6? And wouldn't that account for something?
Worship, we have the longest reach of flood-prone shoreline in the entire province within our region. There's over 118 kilometers of flood-prone shoreline within this region.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor McGuire Blaze, thanks for using the word scary, because that's how some of this kind of feels. Yes, developers and anybody waiting for to go ahead with projects may find a big hang up. So we know the bill has reached royal assent, so we're not backing up on that. But we have a little window, you're telling us, where perhaps while they're still creating this governance model and this model that they're going to move forward with from 36 to 7, that we can have some input. I'm wondering if there's a plan, if with other municipalities, maybe outside of our region, and maybe working with 100 kilometers instead of 300 kilometers to see if we can appeal to them to have a separate, albeit larger, body to work with consideration to the very uniqueness of our landmass here in the South Lake, because we're so unique compared to the rest of the province. If we could make a case to appeal to them to make a different an eighth body, or say that would be just us in separate. I'm just wondering if there's been, what I'm getting at is that when the Police Service Act changed, and a small piece of that was amalgamating a whole bunch of the police service boards. We out of this detachment at Maidstone made an appeal to them to consider some options we threw out, and that was to go to two boards instead of the one that everybody across the province was being mandated to. I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration to, maybe being a little proactive. I don't know. I shouldn't use the word proactive, but approaching them with some other options, because maybe they are still just trying to find their footing and looking how to move forward with this, because many of these people's in these leadership roles now have just been given this and they're trying to navigate. So maybe have we considered offering them, good options that are good for us?
I'll answer the first piece, and then I'll maybe punt the next piece over to our CAO. As far as you mentioned Bill 68, yes, that is given royal assent, and that only allows the establishment of the provincial agency, which then they will make that decision on what the boundaries look like, which that is what the ERO posting is still open for. So absolutely, they're looking for feedback on what that should look like, what your desires are in terms of governance structure. Those are the specific questions that they're looking to see, and they want to see those types of suggestions. As far as what types of conversations are being had out there and options, I'm going to punt that over to our CAO, who would be involved in those general managers meetings.
Thank you, James. Through you, Your Worship. We've had very limited dialogue. We've seized whatever opportunities were provided. There are all kinds of models out there that you could look at and give consideration to. Our source water protection area, it just so happens matches ERCA. We, as a peninsula surrounded by Great Lakes and Detroit River, and then bounded by the Thames River, are a natural, defined, compact watershed. Source Water Protection and the Ontario Clean Water Act looked at that and said, this makes sense. Conservation Authorities Act back in 1973 looked at that and said, this makes sense. So we pushed that forward. Notwithstanding, we have a very good working relationship with our friends and colleagues at the Lower Thames, who share a couple of our municipalities, Leamington and Lakeshore. We've had some conversations with the St. Clair region. So St. Clair region at the top of Lake St. Clair, Lower Thames and ourselves. Any of these things are workable. These things are workable, though, subject to municipal membership concurring with this. This is not a staff-driven, nor should it ever be a staff-driven matter. This should be determined by the electorate. This should be determined by local politicians who are approving local budgets and are held accountable and responsible for those local budgets. These other iterations driven by the province that's not providing any funding for this, it simply makes no sense, or it's just not rational. Define what the problem is, come together with ourselves, come together with our local member municipalities, and we can solve whatever this problem is that needs to be solved. But please define for us what the problem is.
I do have a question for yourselves. So what municipalities have sent in letters of support in your board, like letters through the portal for feedback, and your board has as well? I see that that's the correspondence there.
Thank you, through your worship. All municipalities that have had a chance to have a municipal meeting have provided resolutions in full support to say, stop, leave us alone, at the very least, give us some time to consider whatever this provincial position is, and let's provide some time to talk. None of us are in a position to say, no, we don't want to do anything. Change. Change can be healthy if it's determined that it's something that resolves a problem. We've not seen a business case. We've not seen any dollars and cents being put forward on this, and what benefit is it? And a whole additional layer of another provincially appointed board. In my definition, that's more red tape, not less. Trying to cut out red tape, then let's cut out some red tape. Let's not build something else. But to directly answer you, Madam, Your Worship, City of Windsor and Town of Kingsville and all municipalities that have met and have had council meetings following our board meeting are in full support of the resolution that our board has put forward.
You. And I also want to thank you for coming with short notice. Councillor Mady did have 2 notices of motion. One that was to come and share with us. That is actually the one that's on our agenda right now. So we're actually looking for Councillor Mady's other motion, because he did have another one where we're going to write our own letter in support. So at this time, what it will do is we will have a mover and a seconder receive the delegation of the Essex Region Conservation Authority, and that the correspondence from the Essex Region Conservation Authority regarding Resolution 9025, Bill 68, and the ER posting 2025-1257 be received. Well, Councillor McGuire-Blaise, Councillor Hammond, any questions on this? Okay, seeing none, we will, Councillor Verbeek? Yep.
This is through you, Madam Mayor. For our staff or our CAO, is there a way that we can push this out through our social media to encourage the public to give their feedback and to contact their MPPs and the government? Could we push this out?
Mr. Burney, are they seeking all public feedback right now?
Yes, seeking full public feedback.
I'll make a commitment to investigate and circulate to council.
Motion is just to receive the delegation and receive their resolutions. Do you want to support their resolutions as well and send them to the same people that the IRCA folks did? If so, I'll need a friendly amendment. Okay, moved. Who was my seconder? Councillor Hammond, is that okay? Okay. All right, all in favor of that motion? That is carried unanimously. And then we have Councillor Mady's notice of motion. Director Malandroukolo is going to read that for us, and then we'll get that on the table.
The following notice of motion was brought forward for presentment at the November 17th, 2025 regular council meeting and is brought forward tonight for council's consideration. Whereas the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks has posted environmental registry notice number 25-1257, proposing the consolidation of Ontario's 36 conservation authorities into 7 regional entities, including the creation of a new Lake Erie Regional Conservation Authority, with the consultation period for the proposal ending on December 22, 2025. And whereas the Essex Region Conservation Authority, IRCA, Board of Directors has adopted a formal resolution outlining significant concerns with the proposed Lake Erie Region boundary configuration, citing issues related to geographic coherence, local accountability, transition costs, service continuity, and the unique hydrological and environmental characteristics of the Essex region. And whereas the town of Essex places a high priority on effective watershed management, timely permitting, coordinated hazard mitigation, and the protection of local residents and property from flooding, sheet flooding, shoreline erosion, and other natural hazards. And whereas it is essential that municipalities understand the potential impacts of the proposed restructuring on frontline services, local permitting, environmental protection, and long-term watershed planning in our region. Now therefore be it resolved that Council direct administration to prepare and send a letter to the Essex Region Conservation Authority expressing the town of Essex's support for the IRCA board's position regarding the proposed Conservation Authority consolidation as outlined in Environmental Registry Notice 25-1257, and that this resolution be circulated to IRCA member community municipalities for their information.
Alan, so just to clarify, where's this letter going again? I want to make sure that we're capturing enough people.
So through the chair, it says that it's going to be circulated to IRCA member municipalities for their information. But I suggest that I also add it to the submission window for comments to the province.
I think it would be good to CC our local MPP as well, so that they know directly, and the official opposition as well. And I would like to second that motion. Okay, discussion on the motion from members of council. Councilor Mady.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I did leave some stuff out because I did want this to be our council's resolution on this. I really, really wanted it to be that. So I'm open to friendly amendments. If there's questions we want to put in there, if there's ways that we can think of right now that we could help support the resolution by IRCA, and having that feedback, having that time for our government to speak with our conservation authorities, for our government to speak with us, the local municipal levels, on what we think about this, the time for some real meaning engagement. If anybody had some ideas for that, I'd really like to have those included into this too. So I think there is room for improvement.
Yeah, I think if we were to reach out to some of our residents who suffered dramatic losses in our recent flooding episodes, I think that could be go a long way too with our submission.
Councilor Verbeek.
You, Madam Mayor. Councilor Mady, perhaps we just as council members speak to our constituents and say, can you email the province and say we support this motion?
Thank you. I would also like to understand the province's position a little bit more. I understand they are making some changes. And so one of the things, like Councilor Verbeek alluded to earlier with the police service board, they didn't save money when we amalgamated police service board. And now, like 2022, the budget was 11,500. In 2025, the budget is 36,000. It's tripled the budget. So amalgamation doesn't necessarily relate to cost savings. It relates to the degradation of local autonomy and also local governance and accountability. And I think Essex County is so unique. You know, if they want to amalgamate boards in Toronto for their own reasons, so be it. But we are so unique here in Essex County that we really need to be our own, in my opinion. And they did listen to us when we were talking about police service boards. They did listen because we had such a big territory in Essex County that they allowed us to have two. So I'm going to be hopefully optimistic that the province is going to receive our feedback and give Essex County the autonomy that it deserves from a natural heritage flooding regulation point of view. Any other members of council wish to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you so much for coming.
I have just some basic information on budget, and normally we'd have
Okay.
an opportunity.
Please go ahead so you don't have to come back. Because, okay, let's have a quick motion from council that we receive budget information from Mr. Burney because he's here. Councilor McGuire-Blaise, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. After much debate amongst board members, again, current economic climate, uncertainties in our tariff environment that we are living in and struggling through,
Are any questions to the IRCA representatives? Councilor Mady.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just to refresh my memory, Essex has how many kilometers of flood-prone shoreline?
118 kilometers of flood-prone shoreline.
Thank you. So then the follow-up is, thank you for being able to ask for only $913 increase to help protect that many kilometers of shoreline.
The chair, and I want to thank you for coming and springing the last minute budget conversation on me because it was good news that I can deliver to council now. So we had initially built in a 5%, not knowing where the IRCA budget request would be. So when we head into deliberations next week, we will adjust the tax levy downwards to incorporate nearly $8,000 of savings that you just presented tonight. So appreciative of that. Thank you.
For you, Madam Mayor. Well, since we're having this conversation here and now, am I to assume that comment meant that you have found funds for the upgrade to the wind station at John R. Park Homestead, and I don't have to hit up my fellow councilors for their discretionary funds?
The benefit to the municipality for upgrades of that infrastructure is the responsibility of that municipality. So we again look forward to working directly with the municipality for that. Notwithstanding, at any given time, we are pursuing grant opportunities that every so often federally, less provincially, reveal themselves, and we'll pursue that. But the upgrades that we've talked about, we have budgeted in, but our budget is built on basically levy to municipality. Globally, there are funds there, though, that help us undertake that work. Stations that are built within the town of Essex don't just benefit the town of Essex. They benefit this region, from Windsor to Leamington and Pelee Island inclusive.
So since the CAO said we have $8 grand savings, maybe you can lobby other council members to use those $8,000 for some of those upgrades. If we could get some detailed costing, that might be able to help us. Tonight is not the night, but I do believe we have some flooding reports coming back from administration. One on particular on County Road 50 from Erie Street to County Road 41. Maybe you could come back in the future to talk about the sheet flooding that is happening south of County Road 50 that is really negatively impacting residents in Colchester. I'd like us to have an open, transparent conversation in council chambers about what development looks like there, what it looks like for existing residents when we get 7 inches of rain in a couple hours and the water just washes over the road and floods these homes. And then we have devastation. So I know tonight's not the night, but that's my wish from Santa, is to have further conversations about flooding. Anything?
The Essex Region Conservation Authority is available to this municipality on a simple phone call. We've had some opportunities to speak with your staff, planning and engineering, and we're looking forward to putting our heads together to do some problem solving.
To receive the presentation on the IRCA 2026 budget. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. You may leave officially now. Okay, moving on to our third delegation. Sorry for the wait, Tony. Tony DeRuque, owner of Kennedy Funeral Home. Tony, welcome. Go back to the delegation stand and just push on the mic, and the floor is all yours. You have 5 minutes, sir. If you need more, we can get a motion, but.
Well, your worship and councilors, I'm not going to take up my full 5 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it easy on you tonight, but I did write it down just so I could speak clearly here to you. So again, my name is Tony DeRuque, and good evening, Mayor and members of council. And I really want to thank you for this opportunity to come and speak in front of you this evening. I'm here on behalf of my local company, Kennedy Funeral Home, to request the installation of 2 simple no parking signs on Medora Street directly beside my parking lot. This area functions as one large driveway. When cars park along the edge, it creates confusion and can block vehicles from both exiting or entering. Adding these signs will provide clarity for residents and visitors and ensure smooth access for families during their time with us. And again, thank you for your considering this request and for your continued support of our community.
Comments from members of council here this evening. Councillor Verbeek.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Tony, for coming tonight. And I believe we're just receiving your delegation at this point. But I just want to thank you for all that you do, not in your job where you bring effect to a lot of families, but in your position in this community. I don't know how many councilors in the room are well aware of what Mr. DeRuque does for and with this community for as long as I can remember. And I just wanted to take a chance to publicly thank you for all your involvement and engagement.
Please.
Thanks through the chair. Does our administration know, because I just drove by it on my way here actually, and there is a no parking sign there. Do we know, is it no parking all the way along? And I think the no parking sign is because it's near the stop sign, but it's on a pole. There is a no parking sign. Do we know if there's parking there? And while it looks like you're looking up something. Do we have already something in motion that we're looking at parking in this area?
Through the chair, so there is nothing designated in the parking bylaw that says that there is no parking here. When we had staff review it, I believe I was told that there was no lawful signage there, so you could technically park there. So I don't know if anybody noted that there was a restriction to parking at that site. We aren't looking specifically at this area along Medora, because I believe that's what we're talking about here, is the area along Medora between the entrance and Albert. So we aren't currently reviewing any parking in this area at this time.
Sure. And if we wanted to say no parking here, what would the process be? What would you recommend?
Through the chair, it would simply be direction from council to administration to amend the parking bylaw to make to include a parking restriction in this area.
Through the chair, I would like to make that recommendation, make that motion.
I will come back to you. I'm just, yeah, okay, yep. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I can understand the need for it and the type of business you have. It's not like you can run out there and have it just certain days. You could need that location at any time. So I'll support a motion when it comes forward.
Members of council, or I'll get the motion on the table now, and then if council members wish to speak to the motion, can Councilor McGuire-Blaze? Oh, is it okay if you speak to the motion? Or no? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, to delegate. So you want no parking from in that spot right there, but you're still gonna need that for your staging, right? Well, I imagine you're gonna use it for the, because I think that's where you do the staging. The cars that are typically parking there, are they your customers that are doing visitation, or is it neighboring houses that are parking there?
Through the chair. So are you talking about like when we're having problems or just all the time, like generally? Yeah, I think we do experience some trouble like when there's events in the town too, like the Santa Claus, which is wonderful. But then people just park, and it's hard for me to get like my own vehicle sometimes in the lot. So that's one issue. And yes, we do use that as staging sometimes when we have larger services. But I do have a large parking lot there which does work for the majority of what we do. But yeah, we do use that area sometimes for staging as well.
Would you be seeking a full-time no parking or a limited time no parking?
I think full time is probably the simplest. Like there's probably nobody parking there right this second. But sometimes I do drive by myself and I do see, sorry, through the chair, I do see people parking there, even partially. There is a no parking sign on one of the poles. And a little farther up, there is one that says parallel parking. I think I just want to make it more clear for folks that, because I did have by law enforcement out there to take a peek at it. It is a little confusing because you don't kind of know where you can't park and where you can park. So I'm just looking for more like something, keep it simple. I'm a big believer in keeping it simple and taking good care of folks.
Yep.
And that we go ahead and put the no parking signs there.
By Councilor Verbeek. So if any members of council wish to speak to that motion? Yeah, okay. I have Councilor Guerin and Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Well, I think there is gonna be some circumstances where we need to make exceptions to it, staging for parades and stuff, working with the business, on times that, I mean, there could be situations where he could use that area for staging on a day that the town may need it for their own parade staging, for example. So I think there needs to be some flexibility in it.
Have you signed up to the council agendas and you get notifications of all of our events uptown? I'm sure you're aware.
Your worship. No, I haven't signed up for that. I just pay attention. And I'm always good to work with anybody. Like anyone who knows me, I'm pretty easygoing. It's just I think my main concern is when I have services, and anything's like parades, the Fun Fest. We always work with it. As long as I can get access to my property, then I'm good with whatever.
My question was very similar. I just wondered if Director Gerard had anything to say about us using it. If we put the no parking up there and then us or yourself using it for staging, if that would potentially be a problem, or do we have to have some wording in the bylaw to allow for that?
Through the chair, I don't believe that we follow, like for parade staging, for instance, we wouldn't ticket vehicles parked there for parade staging. So I don't think that that's a big deal. But if it would restrict the public, however, during the parades and things like that. So, I think the key here is that without the parking restriction, it does kind of make a bunch of parking spaces at the Kennedy Funeral Home potentially unusable. And it could actually prevent somebody from being able to enter or leave the property depending on how the vehicles are parked. I think it's a sensible request to put a parking restriction from, say, Albert to the driveway.
Oh, and then I'm going to call the question.
Briefly, from an enforcement perspective, if there's going to be no parking signs with no restrictions, enforceably, we should look at it as no parking with no restrictions. So we can't rely on maybe being okay to do that later or being able to negotiate something. If it's there and it's no parking, it should be no parking. So I think council needs to be voting with that in mind, is that if you're voting for that, it's voting for no parking. Council could always come back and change that later in a motion in the future. But I think they need to look at it as a strict rule against parking in that area.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you for coming. Looking for, did her motion have to receive the delegate as well? Okay, we're going to do a separate motion that we receive the delegate regarding parking signs in Medora Avenue. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councilor McGuire Blaze, all in favor? And that's carried. Down to our final delegate, Mr. Doug Hay from Isler Lodge Extended Care. All right, Doug. Last but not least, just go back there and turn on the button and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, through your worship and members of council. Much like Tony, I don't think I need much more than 3 or 4 minutes. It's ironic that our situations are following each other, because eventually my business at Extended Care ends up in Tony's hands. Little light humor this time of night. Essentially, we're looking at Isler Avenue, where we have our retirement and long-term care home. We're looking at the request for possibly, whatever the bylaws may allow, 7 to 8 parking spots parallel on Isler Avenue, adjacent to our property. When you look at anywhere past our property or before our property, there's residential street parking, but then there's a string of no parking signs along our property line. So essentially, why the change now? The ministry has increased minimum staffing levels in long-term care homes throughout Ontario. So we have, it's great, an abundance of staff compared to past years. So even though our occupancy doesn't change much and the amount of visitors don't change much, essentially it's the amount of staff we now have per mandate from the ministry. Also, we've started contracts with St. Clair College. So we do have nursing students coming 4 times a week to do their clinical rotations at our nursing home. And we end up hiring the cream of the crop of those groups that come through. A lot of the students that come have to park blocks away. I've had visitors come back and say, I couldn't even come here yesterday because I couldn't park. And they leave without seeing their loved ones. We have, and through your worship, I think she's also seen, because you come to events at my place, people having to park on a sidewalk and partway in our drive-through. So the fire lane's open, but people can try to walk on the sidewalk too. Any given day, I have 5 to 7 cars parked up on sidewalks on our property because there's nowhere else to go. So that's what we're proposing to be received, is to evaluate that situation, removal of those no parking signs. It'd be visitor only. Wouldn't be overnight, it'd be just during the day, visitors, 2-hour max. We have a fire hydrant, we have a fire hookup, we have a public bench. So other than those areas, we like to use that area for visitor parking.
Questions, comments from members of council? Councilor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. And to the delegate, isn't there an area behind, I think is it Scott, you can access the green yard behind? That's kind of not, isn't that, would that be an option for extra parking? I've looked at it often when I'm there, and I should, in all honesty, I'm there no less than 7 times a week.
Yeah, it could be a matter of eventually needing both. Waste management comes back through there, deliveries come back through there. So that would have to be evaluated to see if that's possible. I think the quickest resolution for us is street parking, like it's allowed up and down that street in general.
Thank you through the chair. Again, to our administration, do we know why there was no parking signs put in front of Isler Lodge?
Through the chair. So short answer is no. I don't know exactly why. What I can do is in my research, what I can say is in my research, I can identify that there was an amending bylaw to the parking bylaw to put this into place. So it was a specific issue. We did have our legislative services department go and take a look at the records and the minutes from that meeting, but there was no indication as to the exact reason why. But I can assume that it was probably for one of two reasons. It was likely because it was well used and it's a grassed area, so it created a lot of rutting when it was wet or something like that. And it also may have to do with sight lines. So when somebody is coming out of the entrance to go leave and they're looking up and down the road to see if it's clear, it may have caused conflict with the sight lines at one time. But we do know that back in 2004, it was for a specific reason. We just don't know what that specific reason is.
So do we have an idea if we were to allow it, what it would do? Because Isler is a terrible road. The side is a terrible side. There's pits and the road is crumbling. If we allowed people to park there, it would deteriorate the road even further. Do we have a rough idea of how much faster it would do that? And do we know when we expect Isler Lodge, like where does the Isler Lodge, not Isler Lodge, the Isler Road fall on our list for roads to be redone?
Through the chair, so I can't put a time frame to the degradation of the road for something that hasn't existed for 20 years. But I think our main concern here would just be the upkeep and maintenance of the guard. I don't think it would be to the degradation of the road. Sure, you may see some edge cracking and things like that, but I would be more concerned in the wet weather months of parking there and creating rutting and having to send public works out continually to try and kind of level out the area and try and plant grass continually. That would be probably my main concern here. As far as Isler is on the list of priorities, I would say that it's a priority, but it hasn't made our 5-year capital. It's a priority because it requires significant infrastructure upgrades, but in terms of the amount of priorities that we have, it just doesn't fit into our 5-year capital forecast.
For you. Do we have a rough guess of what the cost would be, the additional cost would be on our roads maintenance department to fix that, to continuously go, because it is going to rut. It is really muddy there. I don't think we've put stone down there. I've been living in Essex for 14 years and I don't think we've ever put stone there to fix the shoulder. So what would the cost be to bring it up to a place where we could allow cars to park there without there being ruts?
Through the chair, I haven't done any work to look at that. I would say let's just say at a minimum to create a gravel shoulder there. So it would likely have to be from the road's edge to the sidewalk for the entire length. I don't know if that's something that we would do internally. We would probably have to have somebody do it externally just because of resourcing challenges. But I would say anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000 is my guess. But I haven't done any measurements. I haven't done anything, but I would assume something along those lines.
Karen, and then I'll see if any other members that haven't wish to speak.
Thanks, through the mayor. Doug, just make sure we're talking about the same section. Are you talking about the section that's closer to where the residential home is, where the parking lot is right now, that stretch? Because there's a wider portion of sidewalk into road versus the eastern side of it. Are you talking about just that one stretch that you're pulling in the main driveway to the left? Is that the shoulder you're talking about?
I'm talking a few spots previous.
On the other side of the drive?
Correct.
Yeah, so that one there, the sidewalk is almost looks like 4 feet, even closer to the road. I don't think there's even room there to do it. But back to the, Kevin, you were saying about shouldering there. Is there even though it's on there's an ask from a delegate and it's public right away, Is there an opportunity there for, in case like this, for cost sharing on something like that?
Through the chair, we wouldn't normally enter into any type of cost sharing here, and I think the main rationale would be that the use of the boulevard would be for the public. We don't have like a permit parking program here in the town of Essex, so there's no good way to restrict the parking to just the Isler Lodge, for instance. So if council did decide to remove the parking restriction, it would be to open it up for the whole of the public. It wouldn't be specifically for the use of the lodge. So I would say no, especially in this circumstance that we probably would do something like this, especially since it's impacted public property.
Looking at that stretch, which I think would make more sense than the east side of the drive, it would be parallel parking versus, or just standard parking versus parallel parking, right, would probably make more sense. I'm looking at the map here and it looks like, I don't see how you could actually angle park versus parallel.
Yeah, through the chair, it would likely have to be parallel parking along Isler. I don't think there's enough space there to accommodate angle parking along the sidewalk. And that's the other portion too, is that we would want to avoid any potential of conflict with the sidewalk or any potential issue with a vehicle running over the sidewalk or creating a potentially dangerous situation to a pedestrian.
Couple more. Yeah, so anything that we do there and open up, we're all on the same page and delegates on the same page, would open up the use for all the residents to park there too. So we'd be creating some more parking spaces in and around you, but they wouldn't be dedicated just for your visitors. The green space that Councilor Beek was talking about that's behind the two homes, is that the property, is that Isler's property or residence property or private property?
I don't know where the exact property lines are.
There's a big green space in behind those two homes on Isler to back onto the, I guess it'd be Scott Street or. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering whose property that is.
Hard for me to give you that answer at this time.
Any council member that hasn't spoke yet? Oh, Director Gerard?
Our records indicate that it's owned by the Isler Lodge.
So through the chair, further that then, Mr. Gerard, then what would the Isler Lodge have to do to be able to create a public parking space there?
Through the chair. So I assume you mean like create a parking lot on the existing property. So typically that would be, the first step would be to contact our planning department. So I'll probably pass it on to Director Chadwick to speak to parking lot expansions and potential site plan control.
Without knowing the size of the space or the proposed number of spaces that could fit in the area, a certain number of spaces paved within a settlement area is subject to site plan control. I believe the threshold is 5, but don't quote me on that. If that is a proposal that the lodge is looking into, we can certainly provide you with a summary of what the requirements are by reaching out to Essex Planning at essex.ca.
I'm going to speak and then I'll see if any other member of council. I do believe in the long term, having that parking in the back there would be ideal, but I think that would come with a cost to Isler Lodge, and that would mean that more money would go into putting pavement there or gravel there, and less money would go into care of the residents. That's my one thought. I really would only like to see if we were going to go forward with parking, which I do support some parking on this road because I'm down there all the time. I'm out of the lodge, not as frequently as Councillor Verbeek, but I'm there quite frequently. And what's happening now is people are parking on Isler, but they're parking on the residence across the street and not where Isler Lodge is. So there's people are still parking on Isler. They're just not parking at this location. So if I was a resident there, I would say, hey, create parking right there because then they're not going to park on my front yard. I do know that the road needs repairs. I do know that it's wet, and I do know that it's muddy. I'm also aware that when you enter a report a problem, the town has brought out gravel to many shoulders in our municipality. I had a house on Victoria Street in Harrow, and I called and I would get gravel, and then I would call and they would grade it. So I do know that that is a level of service that the town has provided before. They do shouldering in a lot of places. It is muddy. The road needs redoing. We ultimately need to somehow support you to get a parking lot in the back. But I do see that there is an immediate concern with people there because they are parking on the sidewalk. So I don't know if we could have our administration meet on site to see if any parking is feasible, how many. I don't want to interrupt any bench. I don't want to have a bench looking at a car. The residents there have worked hard for those benches. The town has put the cement slabs, I think, through Councillor Verbeek's contingency fund. So I wouldn't want a car in front of a bench, but I do think there's an opportunity to squeeze 4 or 5 vehicles there. So now that's my position. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see administration go out there to see how many spaces they can create to come back. You know, there are signs there already. They're kind of bent down and they don't look in good repair anyways. So Councillor Verbeek, I have you speaking next, and then any other member.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for bringing up the benches. I mentioned to you as a big concern. It's why my first question to you, sir, was about the space investigating with our staff, the space behind the building that belongs to Isler Lodge that could potentially be a good parking lot for the extra parking for the extra staff. That I'm glad the long-term care is experiencing that. I'm very grateful for that. The benches and the little bit of green space that these seniors have is utilized. If anybody's around there in the spring and summer, the town worked with the residents who raised the funds for the bench, and we facilitated the concrete and the installation. There is very, very often family members with the seniors in their wheelchairs sitting out on these benches that face right onto the road. If we were to turn that into parking, they'd be looking at big truck doors. They'd be looking at pickups and vans 3 feet in front of them when they plant themselves on these beautiful benches in green spaces. They're not huge, they're just little green patches. So the 4 of the residents that I visit on a regular basis in there are blessed enough to be along the window road. And they call that their window to the world. Their chairs are plopped right up against these windows, and they're looking out at the cars going by and the people on the sidewalks. They won't have any sight of the sidewalk. They won't see the mamas in strollers and the people walking their dogs, which is for many of them what they do all day, other than, so yes, when someone is parking there, because they do, specifically if you go at shift change, they will park there on Isler where we're discussing making it legal. They'll park there illegally. And coming out of that parking lot is very, very hard when people are parked along there. You've got to get your nose right out onto the narrow road to see. And my other comment was that there's so many places in town where we could use more parking, and I'm not saying we don't need it, that the Isler employees and visitors don't need it, but the residents don't. If you just take one little ride around there, all of those residents have big, long, extended driveways with lots of ample parking that's not fully utilized. So I'm just saying, I hope that when we investigate this, we can look at possibly assisting in helping, look at the lot that's there in the back before we start putting cars 3 feet in front of the benches that these seniors use. This might, for many of them, that's their daily outing, is to go sit on those benches. And we're going to ask them to look at a big pickup door or a van, or I don't know. I just hope we can find somewhere else and not use up that little space. And like I say, when people are there illegally, it is very hard to get out of that parking lot. And I believe that's probably part of the reason that parking was taken away in 2004, because it makes it hard to navigate getting in and out.
I After I have Deputy Mayor Shepley. Doug, can you just put your mic off? And then after Deputy Mayor Shepley, I'll go back to you.
Madam Mayor, just to Director Gerard, we wouldn't just go and dump gravel along there. I mean, there's grass there and everything else. We dump gravel, it's just gonna get jammed into the mud. So there would be a cost to strip that out, replace that. That wouldn't be something that would be easily done without some, I would imagine, some considerable cost to it. So I mean, I would hope that that would be part, like anything that comes back to us. I wouldn't approve anything without having that full fulsome report on all those costs brought back to us, because I know we do in some cases just drop gravel along some of the roads, but there's generally parking there to begin with, not just grass. So I think that would be important. So I mean, I know you've seen it, but there's a little more to it, I think. And then for the parking in the rear, I mean, I'd be supportive of helping you get a permit to do it. No, I wouldn't be supportive of paying for it, but oops.
Could you try again?
Even Surrey doesn't agree. So that would be my comments, but I mean, I understand the parking issue, and if we can make it work, then that would be great. And then one other question for Director Gerard on when we redo the road, is there enough room for our road to have like a curb gutter and have parking there on where we're not gonna, do we have enough room for that?
Through the chair. So, yeah, I mean, at a surface very high level, there's enough right of way to include it. That being said, no investigation has been completed on this area. We're hoping that a lot of that will kind of shake out of our servicing master plan in the future. But we would have to look at things like cover over storm sewers and things like that to ensure that we could change the elevation of the road to include curb and gutter. Because not every road can just be changed into curb and gutter, but that's not to say that parking can't be in, right? So we've had that conversation, for instance, at like when we talked about Walnut. So it would be kind of like a similar principle where we would look at those options.
Is the Eiler a fire route? We know of?
Through the chair, there's nothing that would restrict a fire engine or any other fire apparatus from traveling down Eiler. That being said, there's also a fire hydrant in the area of question. So in the area where we're talking about the parking restriction, there is a fire hydrant located next to the bench.
All right, we'll go to Mr. Hay first, and then I'll come back to council for a motion.
Thank you. Through the chair, I can respect Councillor Verbeek's experience there. The retirement front where you're speaking of, before you turn right into the property, could be excluded from any parking spots because those windows do face out right there, as well as there is also a fire hydrant, and the fire department connection to my building is there also. So if you were to go past that driveway, we would just be speaking of that area past before you turn right into the property. If you can imagine that, and then not bench that's down there. So it'd be essentially no parking signs close to the driveway so that people can look left and right, and no parking signs at that bench that's there. The company investment to look at what we're speaking of in the back part of the property, this building was redone in 2002. Everything now from an infrastructure perspective, HVAC and so on, is coming due. We will not have the money whatsoever to put the parking lot in the back for 5-10 years.
Councilor McGuire-Blaise.
I'd like to make a motion that we receive the delegates, the delegation, but we also have our administration go on site and take a look at where we could potentially put parking, and then come back to council with a report of how many spaces that would allow and what the additional cost would be on our municipality to add those parking spaces, and then what your recommendation would be, all day parking or just between certain hours, which might work out best, but leave that up to you. So that's the motion.
Supported by Councillor Guerin. And I still think you should just find out like what the process is, how much the permit is, how much the excavating is, how much the gravel is, Counselor Verbeek and I just had a playground miracle, so maybe we can have a parking lot miracle next. So, maybe we could find a contractor that's looking for seconds to donate or something. So I want to think optimistic about that as well. Any other questions to the motion? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for coming. So they'll reach out to you. Okay, thanks, Doug. Reports from administration, finance and business services, miscellaneous fees and charges, development charges, water and wastewater rates. We're going to Heather McDonald, who has waited patiently for us. She's joining us virtually here this evening. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Through the mayor. Administration is asking council to approve the following adjustments to the different bylaws, fees, and charges. If approved, all rates will take effect January 1st, 2026. The adjustments that are recommended are based on various indexes and studies. The percentage from the indexes are calculated at the end of the third quarter or September 30th, 2025. So for bylaw 1812, tariff of fees for cemetery, administration is recommending an increase of 2.4%. This is based on the consumer price index. For bylaw 2040, the miscellaneous fees and charges, again from the consumer price index, an increase of 2.4 is requested, except for lottery licenses, which are provincially legislated, and for the building department. Administration is recommending a 6% increase on all building fees. This is due to an increase in operational costs as well as assist with long-term sustainability. What this looks like to a resident is for an 1,800 square foot residential building permit, the increase would result in an additional $144 for the permit over 2025's rate. Included in Schedule A, administration has added 6 new fees, 3 from the planning division and 3 from the fire division. Schedule B, the community services fees. The user rates have been adjusted to cover the costs and to ensure sustainability of the recreational programs and facilities. Bylaw 2384 and 2385 development charges. An increase of 4.2 is requested, and this is based on the construction price statistics index. Parkland dedication, which is bylaw 2404, based on Statistics Canada New Housing Price Index, the recommendation is to decrease the estimated 2026 rate previously noted in the bylaw by 0.82%. Bylaw 2490 includes the recommended increase to the water and wastewater rates for 2026. For the consumption and base water rates, administration is requesting a 6% increase for all wards based on the 2024 water wastewater study completed by Watson and Associates. The 6% increase would equate to a $2 to $3 increase on a monthly water bill with consumption of 15 cubic square meters. Primarily, wards 1 and 2 receive water through the Union Water System, which the town collects on their behalf. The Union Water System Board will be reviewing their fees early in the new year. If there is an adjustment to the fees, administration will bring this bylaw back with the adjusted fees, and they will take effect April 1st, 2026. The recommended wastewater rates are again based on the 2024 Watson and Associates Water Wastewater Study. An increase of 10% for wards 1 and 3 and 7% increase for ward 4 is recommended for the wastewater consumption rate, and a 7% increase for wards 1 and 4 and 10% increase for ward 3 for the base wastewater charges. The results in the monthly wastewater bill with consumption of 15 cubic meters would be an additional $4 to $7 per month. Wastewater rates are not applicable to Ward 2. All requested adjustments to the current rates will increase revenues, assisting in offsetting the additional costs that all departments are experiencing at this time. Thank you.
Questions, comments from members of council? Councillor Hammond.
I'm looking at Schedule B1. Applicable development charges. Area specific services, there's a wide range of dollar figures here. Can we get some explanation as to why there's such a big discrepancy in each area?
Thank you. Through the chair. Sorry, Councillor Hammond, just one more time. Which bylaw are you on? The DC bylaw. And your question was with respect to the differing areas of service.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I will pass that over to Director Chadwick.
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Hammond. So the DC bylaw, through a background study, identified area-specific needs such as improvements to water treatment plant or hard capital needs. If you're looking at specifically the difference in Ward 2 in comparison to other wards, that is in relation to the Colchester treatment plant that's forecasted as required due to growth. So essentially growth paying for growth. At the time, our CAO was the treasurer. If Kate would like to add something in essence to help clarify, but if I'm incorrect, please correct us. Thank you. Chadwick did a great job. Essentially, the Ward 2 is covered through Amherstburg, right? They're responsible for all of those infrastructure costs. So that's the cost that would be required. And we derived that amount rate from Amherstburg in their design studies. So, and what Director Chadwick had said is every ward has a unique water and wastewater design. And so depending on the needs, how timely the needs are, that's going to make the rates fluctuate. For example, if a wastewater treatment plant needed to be replaced in Colchester sooner than Ward 1, you might see a larger rate impact to try and save for that eventual upgrade.
Other questions from members of council? Any other members of council? I have a couple myself. One being, how was the 6% calculated on the building division? Like I know we do like water, wastewater rates, but for water charges, but this one, like, is there some sort of study? Did we keep track internally? Director Chadwick?
Madam Mayor. So we looked at, of course, the CPI, which was 2.4%. We also analyzed vehicle mileage and inspection related expenses. We also looked at cloud permit increases, that software licensing fee that continues to increase every year. And we looked at pressures on staff for training with all sorts of changes in legislation, even under the Building Code and Building Code Act. So when we did an analysis, we also finally looked at comparables. We are still in line and quite reasonable in comparison to our regional comparators, and in fact, in harmony with those regional comparators based on 2025 fees. So if our region increases building permit fees in 2026, we would even still be behind, but at this point ours is still in harmony.
The development charges, the change in construction price stats, is that what dictates those changes? And then same with the park. Like, are we always pairing the park increases with the Canada New Housing Price Index?
Through you, Mayor, to you, Mayor. Yes, it's stated in our bylaw, and that is what we follow. That directs us to the index that we're meant to use for increases.
And then my final one, the Deferred Committee of Adjustment application. So I see that price, I think, is $600 now. Do you remember, like, what is the current? How much did that go up? Thank you.
So the Deferred Committee of Adjustment application fee under the 2025 fee schedule is actually only one fee, and that is for $133 currently. That is essentially just deferring the application, coming back to Committee of Adjustment without recirculating notice to adjacent property owners or recirculating the same notice that was, for example, circulated the first time around. So we felt the need to introduce a new fee, and that is essentially splitting the deferral for without public consultation being required, or recirculation, I should just say, versus with recirculation required. Sometimes there's instances using the Inspiration Industrial Park, we needed to recirculate due to a big gap in the deferral timeframe. Sometimes it's community sensitivity to a file. So we just made sure to have kind of that separation depending on the circumstance.
Questions from other members of council? Councilor McGuire, please.
It's not so much a question, but I think what would be helpful, with this document is if we had a comparison of what it was to what you're changing it to. Just because, like the mayor just said, what was it? So she just spouted off a whole bunch, like 10%, 5%. Well, I can't write down that fast. So, going forward, I think this particular, a report like this would be really beneficial to see what we're going from to, like, what are we changing? How much are we increasing here? Because this does not tell us that.
I do agree. And I did some I went back on our wastewater report today. I think that water study should also be included as an attachment in case we want to go back and look, because I was like, okay, here's the new prices, but what are the old prices? So the base monthly charge for water is will be $23.94. And the current one for 2025 is $22.59. When you look at it like that, it's not so bad in many cases, but it does help to see it on paper. I do think we need to do public education too, just on why we're increasing water, why we're increasing water rates, because it's a big hit, especially in Ward 3. Like there's a substantial increase there. We know that we need to put money back into our system, but I think it's important that we share with residents why we have to, because we want safe drinking water, we want safe infrastructure. But anything else? Everybody looks sad and depressed right now. Looking for a motion that we receive the Finance and Business Services report and that the following 4 schedules be revised effective January 1st. Schedule C, Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule 1 to all the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Guerin, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to economic development, we have the building report, the Q3 summary. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received for information. Director Chadwick is here as if we have any questions. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Community Services, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day town-sponsored events. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received and that council approves the Arts, Culture, Tourism Committee sponsored New Year's Eve and New Year's Day events, including New Year's Eve family celebration and the skates and the sponsored swim. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Verbeek, any questions? Councillor Verbeek.
Just a quick comment to Director Morissette. All of administration and council that allows this to happen every year. It seems to just, we're tweaking things, it's getting bigger and it's getting better. There's all these community partners, Pathway to Potential, the Harrow Group, it's just something that's really good for our community. I'm just really glad that we continue to support this and that you guys do the work to make this happen for families that can have some free family fun that I'm all in favor of.
Anybody else have a comment or question? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Fire and Rescue Services 2025-20 results for the request for tender for supply and deliver 1 single axle stock cost custom cab pumper rescue 2025. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received and that council award the request for tender in the amount of $1,081,446.26, including non-refundable harmonized sales tax to dependable emergency vehicles. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. And are we in budget, Director Morissette?
Through the mayor and council, we are within budget. We're actually under budget by about $200,000. And this is just one thing with the pre-budget approvals. I know it's not a popular thing with council, but this is one of those examples where we thought it was beneficial because if we get out before everybody else put their approved budgets out there, then we're not competing against those extra prices. So this is one of those ones where we jumped ahead and found those cost savings for the municipality by doing that
Thank you. Questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Legal and Legislative Services 2026 Town Insurance Program Request for Proposal Results. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Legal and Legislative Services report be received and that council award the request for proposal for general insurance to Aon Reed Stenhouse for 1 year with the option to renew each subsequent year for a maximum of 5 years at an estimated $850,701.96, including 8% non-refundable taxes. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Hammond. Questions, comments, or did you want to speak? Do you want just to answer questions? Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just wondering if administration can confirm their 2026 policy provides the same level of coverages and deductibles as last year's policy. If that could be confirmed, then I might have to follow up.
All of the coverages are the same. The one deductible that is different is for equipment. We have a increased deductible. I believe it was previously 10,000. It's now 25,000. The provider said that we can negotiate with them for a decreased deductible if we choose to. The town's plan is to stay with that increased deductible for the first year and see how it goes, and then potentially negotiate a lower deductible if we need to going forward.
And for last year, what was the town's insurance premium for 2025? So I didn't see that. And then when looking at the renewal years that will be coming up, how will we be like, what would trigger that to be tendered out as opposed to us just renewing? And will council give an update yearly on that?
The chair, the previous insurance policy was brought on in 2021. It was a 5-year term. When I was hired with the town, I took on that policy. And one of the things that I found as an issue with that policy was that when we needed to deal with external counsel through our insurance policy, so we have to pay for the claim up to a certain deductible, but the insurance policy controls the handling of that claim. And what our insurer was doing is they were running those claims through Toronto, and they were engaging counsel that wasn't familiar with our area and wasn't familiar with the matters we were dealing with. And that led to a decrease in the level of service that the town required, and also increased costs because they were unfamiliar with the files, unfamiliar with how we operate down here. And it takes them some time just to catch up on things as they operated here. So we did have the ability to renew this policy in that contract, but we chose not to because of that level of service issue. When we went out for RFP, we were actually provided with a quote that was $100,000 less than last year's cost. So this year we'll pay $100,000 less than we did last year with the new provider. We're also being promised that we're going to have a claims management policy that will allow us to choose our counsel in those matters, which I think will allow us to save money in that respect as well. One of the things that we did differently was instead of going with a 5-year term with the ability to renew, we went with the ability to renew every year for 5 years. So if council approves this, you're giving the clerk the ability to allow the renewal to happen for 5 years unless the clerk believes that there's going to be either a service level improvement or a cost savings. And then we can come back to council and do that.
Quick point of clarification, because of the dollar value in our procurement policy, we would garner council approval annually to extend the contract.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Good work on that. Councilor Garen?
Would there be budget for insurance?
Thank you, through the mayor. As Director Malandruclo mentioned, we will realize savings within the tax-rated budget centers of approximately $100,000 for this upcoming year. There is an allocation that's done between tax and water, and so those savings were spread out across both the tax and water rate centers. But as it relates to tax, it's a savings of $100,000. So I guess to directly answer your question, the overall budget was approximately $1 million. And so the savings were split between rates and tax.
CAO Jurusevich. Just to elaborate on that, because I know that we are right in the middle of budget walkthrough and heading into budget deliberations. So as council recalls from previous years, we have the budget change sheet that we display during council at day one of deliberations. So the cost savings that Director Rowe is referring to will be reflected in that budget change sheet. So council will head into deliberations with a positive impact to the tax rate as far as it comes to a decrease.
We're in a second already. Okay, any other questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to Legal and Legislative Services, 2025-26 NWIN Board Appointment Policy, and we'll go to Director Malandrouklo.
Rondi, through you, I do have a presentation for this, so I'll run through my presentation, and then if council has any questions, I'll take them after the presentation. One of the things that I did want to clarify before I lead into this presentation is what I'm asking for is I'm asking for 2 readings of the bylaw to incorporate a policy, which I'll explain here. The 3rd reading will come at December 15th. So if council wants any changes to that policy, they can speak with me on that in the next 2 weeks. So what I'm here to present to you today is the NWIN/ELK Board and Advisory Committee policy, Board and Advisory Committee appointment policy. So as council knows, but the public is not fully aware, in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2024, the town of Essex met with potential suitors for a purchase or merger with ELK Energy Inc. When the town met with those suitors, one of the things that the town tried to do is they tried to encourage value-added pieces in the agreement of purchase and sale for the shares of the ELK Energy Inc. So one of the things that the town was able to procure from the suitors was an advisory committee. So an advisory committee, the role of the advisory committee would act as a liaison between the purchaser of the ELK shares and the town of Essex. Another thing that came up in our discussions with the suitors was the ability to have a member appointed to the purchaser's board of directors. So this is extremely rare. It's not something that you would ever normally see in a transaction, but it was something that it was very persuasive to the town and something that is a very good perk for the town to have. So in between meeting with potential suitors and entering into a purchase and sale agreement, the town negotiated for the terms of those 2 things. And so in negotiating for those 2 things, the town entered into an agreement of purchase and sale with NWIN Utilities, their parent company, Windsor Canada Utilities Limited. So NWIN Utilities parent company. And in entering into that agreement, the town entered into 2 standalone agreements that were related to the purchase agreement, which were the governance nomination agreement and the local community commitment agreement. So the governance nomination agreement outlines the requirements and the parameters around the town of Essex nominating one appointee to the Windsor Canada Utility Limited Board, and the local community commitment agreement outlines a local contribution, a community contribution that NWIN will be providing to service territories of ELK Energy Inc. And it sets out some parameters around how those funds will be allocated. So if we go on to the next slide. So the governance nomination agreement, it will exist for a period of 10 years. And what it allows the town of Essex to do is to nominate one person for appointment to the NWIN Board of Directors. So how that's going to work is council, through the clerk, makes Windsor Canada Utilities aware of their appointment. Windsor Canada Utilities vets that person and makes sure that they're deemed an acceptable nominee based on Windsor Canada Utilities application form for the NWIN board and the skills and experience that they require of their board members. Next slide, please. The local community commitment agreement provides for 5 years of funding to community initiatives in the ELK service territory. So Lakeshore, Kingsville, and Essex. And it's in the approximate amount of $70,000 per year, up to a maximum of $350,000 over the 5-year period. The 5-person advisory committee will not only, as I said, act as the liaison for communication and information exchange between NWIN and the town of Essex. They will also make annual funding recommendations to NWIN with regard to this $70,000 per year. So those 5 people will give Windsor Canada Utilities Limited their recommendations as to where that money should go. Okay. The advisory committee will report annually to council to let council know where that money, how that money was allocated and when it was paid and who it was paid to. So the policy sets out the requirements around selecting the people for those two bodies. The board nominee appointment policy requires that we have an acceptable nominee. So somebody that Windsor Canada Utilities Limited will accept as a board member. The way that it works is that the CAO and the clerk will ask for applications. We'll review the applications, and then we will bring our recommendations to council. Our recommendation is that council appoint in order of preference, with the preference being our mayor, followed by our deputy mayor, followed by a council member, followed by a member of, a resident of the town of Essex. So basically, what our policy is saying is that if our mayor is qualified as a candidate and will be an acceptable nominee in the eyes of Windsor Canada Utilities Limited, the clerk and CAO will explain that to council, and council will select our mayor as the nominee for appointment. If the clerk and CAO determine that the mayor is not acceptable, then they'll move on to the deputy mayor and determine whether or not the deputy mayor is an acceptable nominee and suggest that person for appointment. If not, they'll move on to councillors and then a member of the town of Essex. So the reason for this is because you'll see in the report that there are criteria in the nomination agreement. And that criteria sets out the skills and expertise required of a board member. So it's important that the clerk and the CAO vet the applications to ensure that we're meeting that criteria. Otherwise, Windsor Canada Utilities Limited can choose not to appoint that person. We'll come back to the town for a different appointee. The policy allows for an initial term of 1 year and then successive 4-year terms, and that's to allow it to coincide with council. It allows for unlimited consecutive or inconsecutive appointments for the same nominee. So if we nominate a person, we can nominate them again. We could also put somebody else in their place and then reappoint the original person or back and forth as that might work. It's for a period of 10 years. So we're looking at basically almost 3 council terms. The policy will also allow for the removal and reappointment of the person if something happens where they either put the town into disreputation, Windsor Canada's Utility Limited into disreputation, which is actually in the agreement. Windsor Canada Utilities Limited is requiring that be in the agreement, or if there's some other reason, for example, they're not fulfilling their duties as a board member. So next slide, please. The advisory committee nominee portion of the policy is very similar. The 5 nominees the clerk will send out a call for applicants. We'll receive the applicants, and in consultation with the CAO, we'll provide 5 names to council for their consideration. When the clerk and CAO review the applicants, our preferred choice will be that there are 5 members, that all 5 members are customers of ELK/NWIN. So basically ELK until they amalgamate with NWIN, and that each service territory of Essex, Lakeshore, and Kingsville are represented by at least 1 member. The town was actually requested by NWIN to do this so that the interests of all 3 service territories are represented on the advisory committee. Again, it'll be an initial 1-year term, and the advisory committee is only an establishment for a maximum of 5 years. So there'll be an additional 4-year term after that again coordinates with the term of council. Council can nominate all 5 members again for reappointment, or they can choose to change some of their members after the first year. And again, the clerk and CAO can bring for removal and reappointment any of the members where it's necessary to do so. The board member appointee cannot be an advisory committee nominee, and that's by term of the agreement with Windsor Canada Utilities. So the board member will have to be different than the 5 advisory committee nominee members. So if there's any questions for council, I'll open it up to the floor. And again, looking at a 2-week period to amend this policy if required.
Okay, thank you, Director Malandrucolo. I have Councillor Guerin, then Councillor Hammond.
Can you just explain broadly what the role of the advisory committee is versus the board members' role?
Thank you, Councillor Guerin. Yes, through the chair. So Enwin Utilities Limited has a 6-member board. That board is comprised of the mayor of the city of Windsor, 1 councillor from the city of Windsor, and 4 business people. Those people drive the direction of Enwin Utilities. So the board member would not have, it wouldn't be a majority interest. It would be a minority interest, but it would be a voice on the board to provide some input as to the direction of the entire corporation of Enwin. So they're looking from a broad spectrum over the entire corporation. The advisory committee is a committee that's established by Enwin themselves and is a communication channel. So through communication with Enwin management, not the board, they would be able to drive direction of ELK, like the ELK piece of Enwin Utilities. So the board member is broad spectrum, minority voice. The advisory committee is a very specifically directed to the ELK service territory, specifically speaking with management.
So now that board, which consists right now of a mayor, a council, and 4 business people, would just add 1 more to it? Okay. The advisory committee and the board member is the paid role.
So through the chair, the board member would get paid the same as the Enwin board. The advisory committee is an unpaid role.
Lastly, since in your words, it's very rare that, a merger like this or a sale like this, you get a board position. Right now, our current board has administrative staff that sits on it. Was there any thought on having a CAO or a director of finance that has the board member versus a committee of counselor or even a lay person?
So due to the chair, when we looked at who would be best suited to fulfill this role for the town of Essex, what we looked at was, like I said, what the role would be. So it's a broad spectrum role. It's speaking on behalf of all of the residents, not only in the town of Essex, but also the town of Lakeshore and the municipality of Lakeshore and the town of Kingsville. And so for 2 reasons, we chose to suggest the mayor. The first reason is the mayor is seen in the Municipal Act as being the CEO of the corporation of the town of Essex. So basically, in some respects, our figurehead. The other reason is the mayor not being like a specifically vested council member or a resident is able to speak more broadly on behalf of the entire area. So that's why the mayor and deputy mayor were the first two preferred choices, where they're speaking broadly on behalf of direction for the entire area.
It's through you, Mayor. Can I get sort of some sort of timeline as to the process here, the application process, the selection, when the selection is going to happen and the subsequent approval? Can we get some sort of timeline? And then I have another question.
Through the chair, if council passes this for 2 readings today, then we're going to call on the mayor, the deputy mayor, and council to provide their applications if they're interested in applying for the appointment. And so the CAO and I will review it over the next 2 weeks. And when we bring the policy for 3rd reading on December 15th, we can also bring the suggestion for appointment. So if you didn't see it in the report, there is, I believe it's a 5-page application form from NWIN that sets out the requirements that they're looking for. So we would ask all of council like anyone in council who's interested to fill out that application form so that we could review it prior to December 15th. As far as the advisory committee goes, again, if this gets 2 readings today, then the clerk's office will put a posting out both on our website and in both local newspapers, also in newspapers in the municipality of Lakeshore and Kingsville, asking for applicants for nominations to the advisory committee. And I don't think we'll be prepared on December 15th with those because we may have a high volume of those. So we may be bringing those in January.
The follow-up then, I was led to believe that we're trying to get the most qualified person in this position. What I'm hearing is that it's going to be a member of council, so I'm guessing it's the most qualified member of council. And obviously that if that council member doesn't get reelected or whatever, the next term, he's removed. So this whole nonsense of trying to attract the best person for this position is that in itself not true, and we're just looking for the best person that sits on council currently.
So through the chair, I think we're in a unique situation where we have 2 members of council who have held high positions in boards for a utility company. Because that's the atmosphere as it currently exists. I think, I mean, in the opinion of administration, council is in a good position to appoint a very qualified applicant through their council members and does not need to look external. But again, we do have 2 weeks to discuss this as an administration and as a council. But I think that it will be hard suited to find someone more qualified than a chair and a deputy chair of an energy company.
Thank you through the chair. With all due respect, they were a part of a board that we sold. So I think that Councillor Hammond is accurate in saying we should be looking for the best person to sit on this board, and that's not necessarily one of us who's sitting at this table. Why we're ranking people and even ranking counselors, it doesn't make any sense. If we want the best person to be sitting at this board, we shouldn't be looking at the name. We should be looking at how they filled out their application and what those credentials are. The name at the top shouldn't matter. It should matter on what those credentials are and how that application fits the position. If it's not one of us sitting at this table and it's somebody else, then that other person is the best person to represent Essex based on the application. We don't hire engineers because we know their name. We hire them based on their credentials. So I don't know why we would just put somebody in the seat because they were elected, they won a popularity contest in Essex. That's my opinion. I don't agree with this. I think it should be open. I think it should go based off of the application, and the name on the application should not matter. It should be based on credentials. What do you have to bring to the table? Thank you.
Dr. Malinjuko?
Here, just to mention one more point on that topic. As I mentioned earlier, I think we're well suited where we have 2 council members who are directly connected to both administration and council, and who also have experience that qualifies for the board seat. When in the policy, it specifies that the CAO and the clerk will review all applications in consideration of the Windsor Canada Utilities Limited requirements. So if, I know you spoke to title, but if that title is unqualified, that title is disqualified. So it's not specifically title, it's a combination of the both. So qualifications are are at the forefront. If the qualifications aren't there, it doesn't matter who holds that title. It's an attempt to link both the qualifications and the link to council and administration.
That is not how this reads. You have it ranked 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is that is how this document reads. You're going to pick the mayor. If she doesn't go, the deputy mayor. If he doesn't go, then council. If their applications don't go, then you go to a layperson. That's not how this should be. Number one should be application. And then if the mayor and a layperson have the same qualifications, then the mayor gets the job. But it shouldn't be the other way around.
The chair, they will be, it is the way that you're explaining it. They will be disqualified if they don't have the qualifications. So for example, if the next term of council, if a mayor is elected who doesn't have the required qualifications, it will move on to the deputy mayor, council, and lay people because of the link to council. So if you remove the link to council and you go directly to a layperson, you don't have the link to council and administration that we are benefiting from in choosing somebody who's a member of our council.
Add a couple of points to the discussion. So when we drafted the policy, we also looked at the current composition at NWIN, and we tried to make sure that we had a good complement as to politicians as well as lay people. And so currently there are representatives from Windsor's council, and there are qualified lay people, there are CPAs, there are accountants, as another councillor mentioned. And so when we looked at this, we want to ensure that we're also politically represented. So that was the math behind the qualification. We tried to come up with a hybrid where it was, yes, they're qualified, and knowing that we're heading into an election season, they need to be qualified, but the municipality is also politically represented at that table.
CAO. Any other member of council? Councilor Verbeek hasn't spoke yet.
Through the mayor, I didn't come prepared to defend this well-written policy. I just assumed it would be supported for various reasons, so I didn't come fully prepared. But a couple of comments that stem from comments that have been stated tonight. The four people here to my right were the ones that navigated this ship through some pretty rough waters and did an stellar job. There's no one in this room besides that understands and is more qualified to sit at that board table than the four up here. For the exact reasons that I'm hearing argued against this, I feel like having our mayor or our deputy mayor and suggesting that someone from the would best represent this council and this municipality, not just because they understand the background and the road that has been traveled to get us here, but because they have vested interest in the well-being of this corporation, the best being of this corporation, not someone who's super qualified from the community, a layperson who doesn't have, okay, here I go again, the skin in the game that these two do running this corporation. I did not expect any opposition to this policy because when I read it as written by our clerk's department, I thought it made absolute sense. So I'm not sure if we're going to be voting on it tonight, but I would support it. And I feel like I don't understand why we would consider not asking our mayor or our deputy mayor to represent us on this important board. They did the work to get us this 10-year position. This spot is for 10 years for us to have some input and to try and defend the position and the needs of our residents. So, and I think nobody has anything, there is nobody, no matter how qualified, is going to be as invested in protecting the needs of this community than our mayor and our deputy mayor right now. And maybe they got these chairs by winning a popularity contest, but they've certainly both earned a position on the board.
Madam Mayor, so I understand the questions that everybody's asking, and outside of a few administration here, the mayor and I did receive a training level that I don't think any ELK board member received prior to our term of council. Was something that we put into place, and previous to this new bylaw, it was explicitly conveyed that the mayor and the deputy mayor sit on the ELK board. So while it's not something new. Whether the mayor is more qualified than me, I mean, she likely is. I mean, she handled things a little more directly than I did as the vice chair. But we did have a training that most people don't have, the regulatory side of it, that not just anybody's going to jump in there and understand that. Dealing with the IESO, how cost of service works. There was a lot of things that we learned and were trained on through our time on that board. So while I understand and I agree that, we should be looking for the most qualified person, I don't know that we're not getting that by approving this. I think we probably are, and that allows for that direct continuity between administration, council, and our public. So that's, I'll support it. I give it a lot of thought because I wasn't sure how I felt about it either, but because I spoke with Councillor Hammond about it, but I'll support it based on that because we did receive a lot of extra training. We are aware of a lot of things that we can't share with council too, that we learned and understood from being there. So, even a lineman, wouldn't understand how the IESO works and how that regulatory process works. So I don't know that just anybody would be able to jump in and fulfill the seat in the same fashion.
I'm going to jump in. I haven't had a chance yet. Both the deputy mayor and I have experience on boards. I have quite a bit of intimate knowledge on ELK, and I'm learning and getting a lot of relationships at NWIN. I've also learned a lot from Integra staff. I've been right in the thick of this file for years, even before I was chair of ELK. I'm also on the Union Water Board. I'm on the governance board of Union Water. I'm on many finance committees. And so I've proved to council, I would hope that over the last 3 years, anytime ELK had something going on, I've informed you. We've made sure that we have public ELK minutes that I've sent out as soon as I got to all of council. My job is to keep everybody informed, and that's something that I do and I've regularly done. I've also been out in the municipality of Lakeshore in open houses, so I have a face there. Everybody associates me as the face of Power Flickers. I've been to open houses in Kingsville and worked with Integris to get them to hold open houses. So this board, I've gone to a couple. It is an extremely talented board, a very, very smart individual. But there's politicians on there, and the politicians are on there so that they keep their municipalities in the know. That is basically, we're not taking somebody off their expert board. We're just adding a voice to their expert board. We're not watering down their board because their board is still very strong. If we have, I see this on other boards that I'm on, they have lay people from the community, and then I go, Essex County Library, for example. I go talk to councils that don't have a direct council member on Essex County Library Board, and they don't know what's going on. So their council doesn't know what's going on. So if you want to know what's going on, having the deputy mayor or mayor on this board is your best bet, because we're going to bring back information. We're going to liaison. I know staff still at ELK, and I'll know staff at NWIN, and same with Robbie. But I've already started those relationships a long time ago because I want this to work out well. I have a lot of qualifications. Maybe it doesn't seem like it, but I certainly do. I've handled storms almost like with Councillor DeYoung or Deputy Mayor DeYoung. When we were in winter emergency storms and we did not have staff at ELK, I was bringing in trucks from out of town. So in my opinion, I think I'm adequately qualified. I think the deputy mayor is also adequately qualified. But I think if we go to an outside person, we lose all connection. And that's my warning for council. Councillor Karen?
I think you're taking a little too personal. I really do. I don't think the intent of what we're talking about is saying that you're not, it's next council who's going to be there. Are we pigeonholing ourselves, or why are we not considering everybody? And if you are the right one, or he is the right one, you want it, then so be it. We understand that. But the way that I read it was the same way Councilor McGuire Blaze is reading it. It's like not going to be an open process. It's going to be, if you want it, you're going to get it because you are qualified. That's what that's what it means. So I don't think anyone's saying you're not qualified. What we're saying is if you're not here next term and the next person comes in and they're not qualified at all, they're going to be the mayor, they're going to get it. It's going to be very tough for administration or the appointees to pass over their mayor. It's going to be. So I think we're just saying, let's keep it open. Why does it have to be? And the way I read that was like, we're going mayor first, then we're going to go deputy mayor, then we're going to go layperson. But now we're hearing from our mayor that the layperson is not going to even be good qualified enough, even if they were a past president of a utility. So I think we're just saying if it doesn't read that it has to go exactly to the mayor first, that it's going to be a vetting process and the best person is going to get the job, and it ends up being, it ends up being our mayor or under our deputy mayor, somebody from council. But it may not always be that situation, but we're just trying to wrap our head around this. And we're also just getting it like.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councilor Verbeek.
I read it the very same way, and then it was only when I understood the caveat of the 1-year assignment that would be relooked at in the following year after the next election that I realized that what Joe, or our director of legal, was saying that it would be then evaluated at that point, because the likelihood that, I mean, we may not be here, which we both contend we're uniquely qualified. We may not be here. I mean, we hope we are. We may not be in after the next election. And then at that point, it would follow exactly that. That's the only reason why I spoke out about it today a little bit, because I read it the very same way you did. And I don't think I think that was the problem that got us. Well, I won't speak to that. Never mind. I don't think it should automatic. I don't think that hierarchy should be there without the qualifications. I agree with what you're saying on that premise. But after Joe explained that to us, it made a little more sense.
Through the mayor, as I already stated, I did not come prepared to defend this because I thought this was a no-brainer, because I felt like we as council many, many months back gave this team the walking orders to negotiate this board seat into the sale contract, for this reason, so that we could have someone from our team on that board. I distinctly remember it's why we had them negotiate for the role, to get someone on the board from our team to communicate with us what was happening at the board level.
Not even everybody has spoke once. So anybody, you spoke twice. Okay, Councilor Guerin 3 times. Last one.
Just a friendly rebuttal. We're being asked to approve a policy, and the policy is saying it's going to be an open application process, but we're saying we're going to appoint the mayor and the deputy mayor, because we should have just wrote up then for this term of council for the next year. Let's just appoint the mayor and or deputy mayor to it. And then the policy starts next term of council with a whole new slew of mayor and possibly deputy mayor. That's how it should read, because we're telling people right now in this meeting is apply if you want, but you're wasting your time. And I think that's what we're a little uneasy about. If we really want our mayor to be on it and she wants to serve on it, then we should just put her on and then have the policy kick in for the next term of council.
For Director Malin-Jucolo. Director Malin-Jucolo.
Chair, just hearing council in the room, you all do bring up some valid concerns. Like we did with our delegation of authority bylaw, I can make myself available over the next week. Any council member with an issue can make an appointment with me or have a phone call with me, and they can bring up their concerns, and we can see if we can adjust some of the wording. Just hearing what you're saying today, there's a few suggestions already going through my mind where we can adjust the wording to make it alleviate some of your concerns. So maybe that's something that we can do together as administration and a council over the next week or so. So we bring a policy in 2 weeks that you guys are comfortable with. So that I'm just going to throw that suggestion out there if that's what you guys want. But I suggest if that is the case, we either do our 2 readings this now, or we'll have to come with a 3 reading bylaw on the 15th, which will mean that we need 2/3 of council's commitment on the 13th to pass that bylaw. The one thing that I should mention is the Windsor Canada Utilities Board meeting is in February. So we want to have our selection by January at the latest. We only do have one January meeting, so we have 2 meetings prior to the February meeting to provide our appointee. So we want to kind of, I know it's a rush, but we couldn't do this until we were sure that we were going to close, because we couldn't bring out this information until we knew we were going to close. But we do only have a couple months to deal with this now.
There is an orientation in January that I read for Enwin. Councilor McGuire Blaze?
I don't understand. Why do we have to read? I don't want to pass 2 readings today, because the last time we passed something 2 readings and we tried to change it on the 3rd reading, it was a hell of a boo in this chamber. So I would rather not do that and have the confusion. But why, bringing it back in 2 weeks, would we have to do all 3? We have a meeting in January. Why couldn't we do 2 readings and then the final reading in January? I'm pretty sure we know where we're going with our 1-year term. So we know who's going to be sitting in that seat. I don't know why we have to rush it with 3 readings next.
So I'm hearing council as well, and it seems like there's a 1-year term issue, and then there's the longer term issue, the remaining 10-year term, right? And so council, at this point, if you want, you can go ahead and appoint your member and defer entirely the policy. That's totally up to you. We can separate that out if that's the read of the room. We can, it's really up to council, right? So you can go ahead and read the first 2, and we can make no action at the meeting as long as we have that member appointed on the 19th. So no action on the policy, to be clear. You haven't spoke yet.
To you, Chair. I just brought up a question that in the end, it's the Windsor Canadian Utilities that says yes or no anyways, right? They determine if we vetted this person properly or not. So if we were just to appoint somebody tonight, would that look negatively on the fact that we didn't even vet somebody? We just said that we were appointing somebody tonight?
Was, does it look negative if we appoint one name tonight? I think the person still has to fill out this big application. That's what they're vetting. Director Malinduclo?
Yeah, that actually was a sidebar that that CAO Jerusevich and I had. I think, I mean, there's 2 ways. It's completely up to council. Whatever council feels comfortable with. There is some merit in receiving an application before we appoint that person, just to make sure that person qualifies. But I think we all know who that person might be. And if it's that person, that's the person that we already think qualifies and is best suited. It's up to council.
I agree with everybody saying we know we're gonna pick this term. Can we have it so that we say this person is in for 1 year, and then after that, we may choose another, being that it's an election year?
Through the chair, we can do it that way. I do want to have some finality to the policy at some point this year, so that we know what we're doing going forward. This council decides what's going on, and we have a policy that we can use with a future council, and we have a way to appoint that person, because we were very cognizant of the fact that this is a very sophisticated board. They are dealing with millions and millions of dollars, and the direction of a large number of how a large number of utility customers are receiving their services. So it is something that's very important. The town does want to make sure that we appoint the correct person. So yes, we can do that, but I'd also like to see that we work on that policy before this council leaves us.
Councillor Guerin, you spoke a whole bunch of times, so I'm going to go to Councillor McGuire Blaze, and we'll get our motion up, and then we can speak to that.
Okay, I'd like to put a motion on the table that we do the option where we defer it for now. We give you our feedback. You come back to us next council meeting with a policy that we're all in agreement in, and we with 3 readings. That's my motion.
Looking for a seconder for that motion. Councillor Hammond. Okay, everybody can speak once to this motion. Councilor McGuire Blaze can speak twice because it's her motion. Councilor McGuire Blaze? Okay. Okay, hang on. Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair, just so you can all have a moment to think about it. I do want to say that I do think that the mayor maybe took it personally. And it was not a personal, just like Councilor Guerin said, it was not a personal attack on anybody on this council. It wasn't on the mayor, the deputy mayor, or any person on this council. It was just, we don't know who's sitting in these seats in 12 months. And so it needs to read that. It needs to read that way, because we are, the way that it reads, who knows who's going to be sitting in that seat. And if that person really wants it, I feel like this policy reads that that person can get it. And that scares me. I'm going to be honest. Like, so let's have it be open. And if it goes the way, you know, if we say, okay, it just has to be someone from council first, then let's read it. It has to be someone from council first, and not go mayor, deputy mayor, council. Let's just have it be a council member, maybe an administration member, and then maybe a lay person. But those are my thoughts. It was not personal against any of yous. And I hope to come with something in 2 weeks.
Councilor Verbeek.
Thank you. Through the chair. So just to speak to the motion, I will be voting in opposition of it because I understand that there is training for whatever board member we choose in January, and we need to move forward with this process. And I think if we push this out for 2 weeks and try to do 3 readings, the only kerfluffle we've really run into with this was when we did try to pass things in 3 readings in one night. So that's how we put the brakes on and decided, okay, we got to go 2 in one night and then come back and do the 3rd. By passing it as recommended by our administration and well thought out by our clerk's office, by passing their recommendation tonight, we're not passing the bylaw as it's written. He's already told us that gives us 2 weeks to go back and bring about the changes that we so desire and change the wording. However, in 2 weeks, when we come forward, we can pass it or not pass it if we don't like the changes made. And at that point, appoint that person so they can register, so they may get turned down by the board. So then what? We got to go back to the starting block, and number 2, and then the deputy mayor is then appointed and misses out on the training because of our poor timing. I think that we should be, our team has been working on this for a very long time, and we've trusted them thus far. I will be voting against the motion that's on the floor and then putting forth the one from staff.
Okay, Councilor Verbeek asked for a recorded vote. Councilor Guerin?
Yeah, through you. You need to read back the motion again, because I'm not sure exactly what it is. Because I think we're back to the first motion now. So which one are we on?
Sorry, through the chair. So the motion on the floor is Councilor McGuire Blaze's motion, which seconded by Councilor Hammond. And what she's asking is basically she's just asking to receive the report. We're not going to talk to the bylaw. The bylaw administration knows we're bringing back the bylaw at the December 15th meeting. So basically and Councilor McGuire Blaze is proposing a 3 reading bylaw on December 15th. So basically what council would be doing is council would be changing the ability to pass that bylaw on the 15th through a majority vote to a 2/3 vote of council. So they're elevating the requirement to pass that bylaw on the 15th is basically the only effective change that's happening, because otherwise we're revisiting the policy in the next 2 weeks regardless.
I mean, a vote like this 3/4 is fine anyways. I mean, I'm good with that, but it holds up the application process. No application can come in and holds up the whole process, right?
So through the chair, the administration can discuss tomorrow, but I think we could still put out a call for applicants, at least to council, seeing where council's heading right now with this vote. And then we could decide. And I mean, actually, we're just bringing it out to council now because it looks like that's the way we're headed. If you want to provide some direction to do something else with the application process, then open to it. But based on what I'm hearing today, probably tomorrow I'll ask all council to provide an application if they're interested. And then on the 15th, I'll speak to what I received and I'll speak to the changes that were made to the bylaw.
The mayor. Yeah, I mean, I was more inclined to appoint for this term of council and then the end of council have the policy in place. We could have worked on that, but if the motion is to do 3 readings and it's not going to hold anything up, you need a friendly amendment to that then to be able to accept applications.
Through the chair, that'd be great if you want to make the friendly amendment. I would just make sure we specify council only at this point, because I don't want to do a public call out. There's extensive work required in the application. Very lengthy application. So we don't want to do a public call out at this point until something is in fact.
Then I'll make that amendment if the mover and seconder agree with it.
McGuire-Blaise is nodding yes. Counselor Hammond is nodding yes. You'll speak to the motion. Counselor Verbeek.
Through the mayor, I just remembered another reason I will be opposing this motion, thanks to a little reminder. This role, council, is not a voting role. We're sending eyes and ears to this board is what we're trying to do. Someone who's going to listen and then regurgitate back to us what they're learning through this board. They don't have a voting position.
Hello.
Through the chair, I'll review the agreement, but my understanding is that it is voting, but it's 1 of 7. So it's, I mean, there is a vote on the board, I believe, and I'll review it to confirm. But it's not a majority vote, so it won't be a poll vote. It's 1 of 7, but I believe there's a vote.
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair. I hope what administration's hearing too right now is that I think council would have been much more supportive if you'd have just said that you'd vet them. And you understand how important the connection is between having somebody on council on the board and not, and you would have vetted accordingly. And I think that might have just done a whole bunch of debate right there. Can you remind me on the amount of votes needed to go from a 1 reading to 2 reading to 3 reading in one sitting?
The chair, if council is ever attempting to do more than 1 reading, you need a 2/3 vote.
CEO Drusevich wishes to speak about the vetting of the applicants.
Apologies if it wasn't clear in the presentation, but Director Malzerflo did detail it within the reporting policy that all applications would be reviewed for accuracy and making sure the qualifications were present that NWIN provided. So that was specific in the policy. And then I think a point of clarification is to be made as well that recommended appointee still comes to council for approval. So authority does not sit with the clerk and CAO. What happens is the applications are reviewed very similar to what we just did for the police service board. We vet them, making sure that the credentials meet the policy, and then we bring that suggested appointee for council vote.
All that being said, I'm not supporting the motion because I don't really understand what the intent of the motion is, other than I think it feels like more red tape. So at this point, I think we will call the question.
So the purpose of the motion was to make the changes for after the first term. So to make the changes so it didn't read that it was 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was the purpose of the motion, to come back and to have it rewritten so that way after the first term, so terms 9 or 2 to 10, everyone could agree upon. So so bring that back to us, have it not be so specific. And then I'm listening to council, we're gonna pass it at 3 readings. So I don't know why you wouldn't support it.
So through the chair, Councilor Verbeek has requested a recorded vote. So again, I'll just clarify what we're voting for. So we're voting to receive the report and nothing else. And administration knows that they're bringing back the bylaw December 15th meeting. So Councilor Verbeek, on the motion, how do you vote?
Opposed?
Councilor Verbeek opposes. Councilor Allard, how do you vote? Councilor Allard opposes. Councilor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor McGuire Blaze supports. Councilor Guerin, how do you vote? Councilor Guerin supports. Councilor Hammond, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor Hammond supports. Councilor Meady, how do you vote? Councilor Meady opposes. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi opposes. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. So by a vote of 4-4, the motion is defeated.
Motion. You earlier say you wanted to make a motion. That's why I'm going back to.
Okay, I'm just making the motion that was recommended that I thought we were going to do an hour ago, that we support the recommendation by Legal and Legislative Services.
For a recorded vote, Director Malingikolo, please. Want to speak to it? I think we've spoken up, or Councilor Meady.
I just wanted a clarification again on the amount of votes needed for this to pass for more than one reading right now.
The chair, I was gonna mention that. So Mayor Bondi asked for a recorded vote. In order for 2 readings to be passed, we need 2/3 of council to vote in favor. So if we don't have 2/3 of council, we'll have to come back for another proposed motion. So the motion on the floor is the motion being presented by administration, that the report be received and that bylaw number 2496 be read a first and second time and provincially adopted today. So Mayor Bondi has requested a recorded vote. Mayor Bondi, how do you vote? Mayor Bondi supports. Deputy Mayor Shepley, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Shepley supports. Councilor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor Verbeek supports. Councilor Allard, how do you vote? Councilor Allard supports. Councilor McGuire Blaze, how do you vote?
Support.
Councilor McGuire Blaze supports. Councilor Guerin, how do you vote? Councilor Guerin supports. Councilor Hammond, how do you vote? Councilor Hammond opposes. Councilor Meady, how do you vote? Councilor Meady supports. So this is enough to pass the motion. So the motion is carried.
Well, can you please recap what we're doing in the next 2 weeks for members of council and the public?
Mayor Bondi, through you, I'll make myself available to anybody on council who wants to discuss the bylaw and wants to propose some changes. And just like I did with the delegation of authority bylaw, I'll pass the policy out to council tomorrow morning so that you could review it again. And then I'll make myself available. I'll move meetings. I'll do whatever it takes to get some time with you in order to discuss it. And then hopefully we bring back a policy on the 15th that's acceptable to council. And again, on the 15th, it'll be a majority vote required to pass it because we did 2 readings today.
Reports from our youth members. Youth member Lauren Smith.
Mayor, I'm pleased to announce that the winter sports at EHS have started. So now we have boys basketball, girls volleyball, swimming, and hockey. And then our leadership class this year is running a giving tree. So classes are taking items off the tree to purchase for seniors at Isler Lodge, and then we'll be giving that as gifts for all of their residents. Thank you.
Got nothing to report this week. Thanks.
We have a county council update from the Deputy Mayor Shepley.
County Council supported the continued delivery of economic development services through Invest Windsor Essex and approved a stable 3-year funding model at $1.1 million annually. The message here was clear. While reducing services might give a short-term savings, the long-term risks to jobs, investment, and competitiveness outweigh that. A coordinated regional approach makes us stronger when we're competing for businesses and government funding. Council approved the refreshed Windsor Essex Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for 2026 to 2029. The updated plan is built around 3 pillars: engaged communities, safer public spaces, and coordinated systems. There are no new budget dollars attached to this. Any future costs will come back to County Council individually once needs and impacts are known. A revised comprehensive emergency management plan was received. I updated the comprehensive emergency management plan for 2025. This keeps us compliant with provincial legislation and reflects ongoing work to strengthen the regional emergency preparedness. Emergency management responsibilities have now been moved from EMS to corporate health and safety to improve coordination and support across all departments. County Council approved or adopted a large-scale industrial development grant matching program. This allows the county to partner with local municipalities when appropriate to help attract major industrial projects that brings investment and long-term tax growth. Matching incentives when a municipality already has a community improvement plan in place helps us to stay competitive against other regions. County Council received a report regarding the development charges bylaw and agreed that with the recommendation to defer for final consideration into the new year. There are provincial changes underway, including Bill 60, and additional consultant work is needed to ensure the bylaw is fully informed and compliant. And finally, County Council received an update on the road rationalization study. While the draft analysis shows a potential net reduction of about 35 lane kilometers from county network, Council was reminded that a smaller network does not automatically mean reduced operational burden. The remaining roads still require sustained investment to maintain expected service levels, and administration will return with final recommendations on this. And that concludes the County Council report for November 19th.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions on that report or on the County Council minutes? Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Essex County Council regular meeting minutes listed be received. Councillor Hammond. Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence to be received. We will receive all of them, and then if members of council wish to pull out others, just let us know. Looking for a motion that the agenda items in 13.1 be received. Councillor Allard. And supported by Mayor Bondi. Any question, or actually all in favor? All in favor? That's carried. Any items of correspondence any members of council wish to pull out? Councillor Verbeek.
Okay, thanks through the mayor. I was looking at 13.1.3 from the township of Selwyn. I will state as soon as I saw it, I heard this a couple years back at a conference. A lot of other municipalities were concerned about when these changes were coming, how it would affect nonprofits because they are now having their curbside recycling not done for them. So I mean, I can read pieces of the letter if you want. For the most, we'd just be supporting their letter to the province urging reinstatement to reinstate eligibility for the curbside blue box collection for nonprofit organizations. A lot of food banks in that get a lot of box board because that's what their donations are made. They're already strapped for cash. They don't have money to pay for labor and such. And their collection has been discontinued, as has all nonprofit organizations. So it's just a letter to urge the province to reinstate.
Resolution on curbside recycling eligibility for nonprofit organizations has been moved by Councillor Verbeek and supported by Councillor Mady. Their mayor's name is Sherry too. So any questions on this? We'll send it to our list that we support them. All in favor? And that is carried. Any other items in correspondence to be pulled out? Seeing none, correspondence to be received and supported. We have the Drainage Board looking for a mover and a seconder that Jonathan Weisenall be appointed to the Drainage Board to be received and supported. Councillor Allard, receive and support? Okay. Receive and support by Councillor Allard. Support seconded by Councillor Mady. Any questions? Councillor Mady.
Chair. The This is a pretty quick turnaround from the resignation of one of our members to having somebody fill that seat. I understand it's an important board. But it didn't go through a striking committee or anything. Was this the only application or was it?
Yes, it was the only application, and it was actually open for a little bit longer than we've seen with other boards. So, I mean, it does, it might seem short, but it actually was open a little bit longer, and it was the only application, yes.
I did see the advertisement on social media. I went and found it, so it was out there too. Mover and a seconder. Okay, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Affordable Housing Task Force, that the application by Eric Standell be appointed to the Affordable Housing Task Force, be received and supported. Looking for direction from council. Receive and support, Councilor Mady, supported by Councilor Verbeek. Any questions? We did have a couple vacancies on that committee. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the application by Paul Totten be appointed to the Affordable Housing Task Force, be received and supported. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councilor Verbeek, move and support, and supported by Councilor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Looking to receive the committee meeting minutes and adjust agenda item 14 together with any recommendations to council. Coan Park. We have that the Coan Park approve the proposed budget and that the Coan Park Committee recommends that councils of Essex and Amherstburg approve the budget, and that the Coan Park recommend to the councils of Amherstburg and Essex that any unspent 2025 capital funds be added to the 2026 budget. So when we support these, we are indeed supporting these resolutions, correct? Okay. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Guerin, Councilor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Notices of motion. The one that Councilor Mady had was already brought forward. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Councilor Verbeek because the Deputy Mayor is left and Director Malindre-Globe.
Mayor Bondi, through you. The following notice of motion was heard at the November 17, 2025 regular council meeting and will be brought forward tonight for council's consideration. Moved by Mayor Bondi that council direct administration to provide council with information regarding the lighted snowflake decorations hung by the town in the urban cores of the town of Essex, and that such information include the condition of the decorations, the annual cost to repair the decorations, and possible costing options for when the decorations need repairs or replacement.
Moved by Mayor Bondi, seconded by Councilor Mady. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Chair, I do know that there's different models in both the Essex and Harrow. Just looking to see if we can have some actual figures brought forward to us so that we can know what the repairs are actually costing us. More specifically in Harrow, because the snowflakes are really old, and I'm wondering if Director Gerard can even speak to the operating costs right now, or do we, is it something we have to bring forward? Or I just want to make sure that we're planning ahead for the life expectancy of these lights, because I have a feeling that they're on their way out and we have no plan for them and we don't know what they're costing us.
Yeah, through you. So yeah, the lights are fairly old, actually, both sets. We have a set for Harrow that have been there for quite some time, which is like the Shooting Star. And then we have, or the Shooting Snowflake. And then we have two different sets in the Essex Center core. So we have the new ones that the BIA purchased that are in the newly reconstructed streetscape area. And then we have the old snowflakes that are attached to the older style poles on the outskirts of that streetscape. I would say that annually we're repairing a significant amount of them. In essence, they're just a steel frame with string lights kind of run through it. So sometimes it's a matter of changing the string lights or having it repaired. So yeah, I would say we're repairing probably at least 5 to 12 a year. Whether that's changing out the lights or changing out the frame. But the actual cost I don't have offhand, but if it's something that you're looking for in a report, we could certainly bring it. I know that the history is that both individually the chamber in Harrow did purchase the ones in Harrow, and the ones in Essex were purchased by the BIA, and the town has just been maintaining them. We put them up, we take them down. They're actually stored at the BIA's facility when they're not being hung. So, but yeah, we could certainly put some facts together into a report if you're looking for it.
Bring something forward in a future budget. Like if we're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year on the Harrow, in particular the Harrow lights, I think it's something that we should be aware of, and and I'm not sure what the solution is going forward for the Harrow snowflakes, because the BIA is separate. They've paid for theirs, but I'm not sure if there's naming rights, fundraising, but it's something that we have to be cognizant if our administration is like absorbing these fixes every year.
Yeah, thank you. And you, Chair. Yeah, if you can include the cost of the repairs, that would be great. And like kind of the cost of having to install them and take them down, because that's all part of the taxpayer's cost, right? Sure, somebody purchased them to begin with, but we're taking care of them. We're putting them up, we're putting them down. We got to do the repairs. So I like to know how much that's costing our taxpayers every year.
Call the vote. To the Mayor Sherry Bondi's motion. All in support? I think that's unanimous.
Reports from council members. We'll start at the right. Councillor Guerin.
Lots to report. So Friday coming up is the Stroll by Santa in McGregor at the Parquet. Parquet's right next to the post office, and it's a wonderful free event. Everything is free. Bring your family out. Have a really nice experience. Our youth counselors, Foster and Smith, will be there. They'll be playing lots of games with the kids and handing out free popcorn from Parrot Head Popcorn. We'll have representatives from Naples giving free popcorn to everybody. Our Squires and the Columbian Club are supporting hot dogs for everybody. Knights of Columbus will be giving hot chocolate. There's all kinds of crafts and paint your own cookies and goodies for everyone to take home. But most important, Santa's there for pictures. He has gifts for all the kids. Our mayor is going to be running her annual mayor's coloring contest with great prizes. Yeah, lots to do. It's a free family event at the Parquet. It's 5:30 to 7. I know the last few years we ran it 5:30 to 7:30, but honestly, after the sun goes down, it's just too cold. So come on out and have some free fun.
Thanks through the chair. I just want to let everybody know that Friday, December the 12th, Santa's Village is hosting a movie. It's going to be at the arena. It's The Grinch is going to be playing. So come on out. That's sponsored by M&M Concessions, and there's popcorn and drinks and activities for kids. We are hosting a food can drive for the local food bank. So if you are coming and you have an extra can or two, we would welcome you to bring it. Then the very next day, December the 13th, is Santa's Village. That starts at 2 and it goes from 2 to 9. And if you come out for that, we have the Santa Claus Essex Parade at 6:30. So come for all of the activities that we have at Santa's Village, and then stay for the parade and finish the night off with a snack at one of our vendors, or stay in town and visit one of our restaurants. And that's everything. Thank you.
Bylaws that require a third and final reading, bylaw 2494 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 17th regular meeting of council to be read a third and finally passed December 1st. Moved by Counselor Mady, supported by Counselor Hammond. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. That's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2491 being a bylaw to authorize long-term borrowing pursuant to issue of debentures to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation in the principal amount of $5,600,058,977.60 for the capital works be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on December 1st. Moved by, this is for the streets fee, Counselor Garand, bless you. Supported by Counselor Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaw 2497 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the December 1st regular meeting of council to be read a first, second time, and provisionally adopted December 1st. Counselor Allard, Counselor Mady, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Needing a motion to adjourn. Counselor Verbeek, Counselor Allard, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was a long one. A long one.